Atem, also known as Yami Yugi, is often regarded in universe to be one of the greatest duelists in history. In real life though, well, let's just say his deck building wouldn't get him out of the first round of any major tournament. So it got me thinking, right? If Atem was present during the events of Tag Force 3, could the cards he used actually be good enough to get through the campaign? Well, that's what we're here to find out. I know this is the first video ever on the channel, but if you do love Yu-Gi-Oh content, challenges, the classic video games, retro formats, please consider subscribing. It helps to support the channel and lets me know how I can improve these videos going forward. I do plan to make a lot more like this, so stay tuned for those. The story of Tag Force 3 is segmented across 3 distinct tiers, Duelists 1 through 3. Duelists in Tier 1 consists of 7 characters. This is the canon events of the game, so to speak, as Duelists in Tier 2 and 3 respectively all share the same generic storyline, whereas the characters in Tier 1 have their own individualistic campaign. These Duelists are, in no particular order, Jaden Yuki, Syrus Trusdale, Blair Flannigan, Zane Trusdale, the CHAZZ, Alexis Rhodes and Bastion. We will have completed the challenge when we beat all 28 duels of the campaign. Before we go on to the card by card of the deck, let's briefly go over the challenge's rules when it pertains to deck building. First of all, we can only add cards to the deck that Yami Yugi himself has played in the anime continuity. For consistency's sake, this extends to the original anime, including all of the filler arcs, the Pyramid of Light movie, and the Bonds Beyond Time movie. Whilst Pyramid of Light does exist within its own canon separated from the anime, I included it here simply because some of the cards Atem plays in this movie would realistically be in his deck anyways. We can also add up to 3 copies of any card eligible to the deck. Since the anime is guilty of just throwing one-offs in the main character's decks, Yami Yugi always ends up playing a card list consisting of random monsters that don't synergize with each other whatsoever. The point of this challenge is to see if he can beat the game with the cards available to Atem himself at the time, and the strategies he could have potentially used if he built his deck slightly differently using the card pool that was available. Second of all, I can only use cards gifted to Atem if they remained in the deck for an extended period of time. This right off the bat excludes both Exodia the Forbidden One and Fiend Sanctuary, the former being the ace card representing Grandpa Morto the most, and of course Atem only uses Fiend Sanctuary once during his duel with Yami Merrick. Red Eyes in turn is eligible as it remains in Atem's deck throughout the entire Battle City arc, although I don't think we'll be using it this run. And finally, we must abide by the ban list present within Tag Force 3. However, if a card is banned, we can substitute it with a lower powered legal variant if it exists. This only affects Pot of Greed as it is banned, so we can play up to 2 copies of Upstart Goblin, a spell that draws 1 card at the cost of giving the opponent 1000 life points instead. I wanted to still abide by the ban list when applicable for an extra bit of challenge when it came to the deck building. Otherwise, we could have just stacked the deck with 3 copies of Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, etc. And I feel that would just take away all the fun from the run itself. So with all that out of the way, let's move on to the card by card. When I was studying Atem's anime decks in preparation for the video, I noticed that despite the random vanilla monsters he plays, he does play enough of a number of archetypes that we were able to squeeze multiple deck ideas out of his otherwise lackluster card pool. The obvious strategy and the focus of deck 1 are the spellcasters. Atem throughout his time plays a variety of powerful magicians that when combined can string together to make a somewhat comparable spellcaster deck. Introducing Dark Magic Turbo. As the name suggests, this deck is focused around cheesing out the Dark Magician as fast as humanly possible, using spell cards such as the Dark Magic Curtain that allows us to special summon him directly from the deck for half of our life points, as well as Magical Dimension that gives us the ability to special summon 1 spellcaster for the cost of tributing a monster. We can then pop a monster on the opponent's side of the field when it resolves. The interesting thing about the requirement of this card is that the tribute used to resolve the effect doesn't have to be a spellcaster at all. We only need a spellcaster on board to use the card. So if applicable, we can easily sacrifice our partner's fodder monsters instead to keep the pressure on the opponents. Naturally, we're running 3 copies of the Dark Magician, alongside 2 copies of Dark Magician Girl, since you can't have a Yugi deck without her. Buster Blader is here mainly for the potential fusion of Dark Paladin. He's at 2 as he's the only real brick in the deck as a whole. We don't want to draw into him if we can help it. We're also running 3 copies of Magician Valkyria. Yugi uses this in the Pyramid of Light, and it's essentially the spellcaster equivalent of Marauding Captain. It has 1600 attack points, and it can be the only spellcaster that's able to be targeted for an attack. So if you can get multiple of these on the board, that locks down the opponent from attacking at all as they protect each other. The funniest inclusions of this deck are the playset of Skilled Dark Magician and the 2 copies of Old Vindictive Magician respectively. Both monsters are extremely valuable compared to the rest of the deck, with Skilled Dark Magician being a 1900 point beater that can cheese out a Dark Magician once it has 3 spellcasters, and Old Vindictive Magician pops a monster once it's flipped. If you're racking your brain trying to figure out when Atem used either of these cards, I didn't get it either until I looked it up. Atem uses both of these monsters exactly 1 time each in the worst filler arc of the original series. Yes, the KC Grand Championships. To round off the monsters, we're playing 3 copies of the Tricky. Tricky is great because despite being a level 5 monster, we can special summon it from the hand by discarding a card. So as long as we have at least one other card in our hand, it'll always be online. And in this era of the game, barring fusions and the occasional boss monster, it outranks the generic beatsticks by 100 points with its 2000 attack stat line. I know what you're thinking right now. Where's Magician of Faith? Where's Breaker? Well, they're both banned in the 2009 OCG formats, and for Magician of Faith, I'm not mad. A monster that allows us to recycle a spell in a format where an all-star lineup of some of the most useful spells in the game are legal? Okay, that is a little too good. Understandable. But I call some bullshit on Breaker. At first glance, it might make sense. A virtually 1900 attack beater you can normal summon without tribute that can pop a spell or trap once whenever it wants. I admit it is pretty good. Under any other circumstance, this card being banned is reasonable, or at the very least, there's an argument for it to be limited. But not in a format where Judgment Dragon, yes, that Judgment Dragon is legal at 3 copies. A 3000 point attacker that is easy to cheese out, with a board wipe effect that isn't a strict once per turn and can still battle on the turn it uses it. You're really sitting here and telling me that Judgment Dragon of all things is perfectly fine at 3 copies? But little old Breaker with its ability to pop 1 back row 1 time is too good? Unbelievable. For the spell traps, we're running 1 copy of Brain Control, just a great tempo changer all around, and we can use the monsters as tribute fodder if need be. 1 copy of Card Destruction, 3 copies of Dark Magic Curtain naturally, 1 copy of Heavy Storm. Now, Yugi uses this card 1 time throughout the entire anime, and it technically wasn't even in a duel. It was during the virtual arc where they're fighting through those doors to get to Taya. Yugi uses it to remove the door's back row. Yeah, it's cheeky, but it technically counts. They play the card, it proves that they have the card in the deck, and so I'm going to take advantage of it. 3 copies of Magical Dimension along with 1 copy of Mystical Space Typhoon. A Monster Reborn for free access to either graveyard. 2 copies of Polymerization if we ever open a hand with both Buster Blade and Dark Magician. 1 copy of Premature Burial for the revival. A copy of Swords of Revealing Light to stall if things go pear-shaped, which I expect they will given the deck. And finally for the spells, 2 copies of Upstart Goblin substituting Pot of Greed. For our traps, we don't really have many choices to choose from. Whilst Atem does play a number of powerful traps such as Mirror Force and Magical Cylinder, they're both limited at 1 copy each and Tag Force 3. He never plays any other useful traps like Trap Hole, Bottomless, etc. and Dark Renewal just isn't in the game for some reason. So we're forced to run 2 copies of Dust Tornado for more back row removal instead, and 1 copy of Light Force Sword. Atem used this to stab a sword through Obelisk during the Battle City semi-finals, and the fact that it removes a card from the opponent's hand for 4 turns, and can be used during the draw phase as well, is just too good to not include. I thought about putting in Spellbinding Circle or the Magical Hats, but I think the double Dust Tornadoes would be far more useful in the long run than more battle traps. Considering the amount of high level monsters we're running, it might seem like the deck is prone to bricking. From my testing against the CPU though, this rarely came up. We just have so many ways to cheese out the Dark Magician that we're always going to draw into something anyway. And on the occasions that we don't, Tricky should be able to stall out the duel long enough for us to acquire those resources. I do have 2 other decks prepared, but we'll go through the card by card for those when they become relevant to the challenge. I don't want to top load the intro too much, so with all of that out of the way, let's jump straight in. The first obstacle in this run might as well be the greatest threat in general. We accompany Jaden to the volcano and he confides in the GOAT about the things he learned throughout the events of the other dimension. We are sent back there via a flashback, as Jaden is fully enveloped in the gentle darkness. His friends and Atem attempt to bring him back through a shadow game. Jim dies, Axel runs away like a little bitch, and Syrus, well, he's Syrus, forcing us to throw our spiky hair into the ring to save our protege from the grasp of Supreme King Hao. Supreme King Hao plays an aggressive style of the hero's archetype known as the evil heroes, corrupted amalgamations of what was once Jaden's favourite monsters. Although you'll rarely get to see them, as this variation plans to turbo out Hao's strongest fusions through the use of Dark Fusion, and the evil version of Miracle Fusion, Dark Calling. Combine those with the spell Fusion Dimension, a spell variant of Return from the Different Dimension, allowing you to bring back the banished fusion materials at the cost of 2000 life points, which often ends up being one of the many cards belonging to the Monarch archetype, and this man is fully capable of OTKing you. In fact, he will. Several times. Of course, he does play a decent heroes package to go along with it, containing Stratos, which is able to search for his other hero monsters on summon. Gorz, Emissary of Darkness, is a nasty 2700 point monster that can be special summoned once he's taken damage. He then special summons a token that has the exact same stat line as the monster that dealt the damage in the first place. This fucker was extremely prominent around this time in the real game, so he's not surprised that he has it as well. He's even on Neospatian Grand Mole, and with its effect to bounce back any monster it attacks to the hand, this will ensure we will be wasting a bunch of our own resources just for the pleasure of keeping Dark Magician on the field. If that wasn't bad enough, his spells and traps overall are also just really good. He runs Soul Exchange to tribute our monsters so we can actually take advantage of the powerful Monarch effects, with all of them being one tribute monsters. Staples galore in Reborn, Brain Control, MST, Heavy Storm, Mirror Force, Premature Burial, Torrential Tribute, and even Metal Reflect Slime on the odd occasions he's put on the back foot and needs to hide behind a 3k wall for a little while. I'm going to be straight up, 99% of our attempts involved us just getting destroyed whenever he got Evil Hero Gaia on the field. We're playing Dark Magician for Christ's sake, before it even became good to boot, whilst the Supreme King is using his second deck, which is his strongest by the way. This is the first story event in the game. Anyway, we start with an open hand of Skilled Dark Magician, the Tricky, and 3 copies of Magician Valkyria. Hao, feeling pity on us after being OTK'd by him 5 times in a row, sets 2 measly face downs and ends his turn. We draw Dust Tornado and immediately set it, summoning Magician's Valkyria in attack position. Hao, clearly being frightened of the waifu, responds with Torrential Tribute, wiping the board, so we end our turn. Hao draws and summons Evil Hero Infernal Gainer with 1600 attack, and deals the first blood of the duel. He immediately ends his turn though, and we take the chance to Dust Tornado the set card in the end phase, which ends up being the trap monster Metal Reflect Slime. We draw Dark Magic Curtain for turn, and not wanting to waste an opening, special summon the Tricky by discarding Magician's Valkyria and normal summoning Skilled Dark Magician. We destroy Infernal Gainer with Skilled Dark Magician and attack directly with the Tricky to deal a whopping 2300 points of damage. Hao could not let us enjoy the lead for long though, as he immediately follows up with Brain Control, stealing our Tricky, and fusion summoning the Neospatian Grand Mole with the Evil Hero Malicious in his hand, fusion summoning Evil Hero Dark Gaia with a 3300 attack point stat line. We're cooked, aren't we? Hao destroys our Magician with our own monster before direct attacking with Dark Gaia, leaving us with a measly 3000 life points. We do get the Tricky back upon the end phase. It's the small things in life, you know. We draw and pull Mirror Force for turn. Feeling the plot armor kicking in, we summon our second Magician's Valkyria, setting the Mirror Force and praying that he falls for the obvious bait. Hao draws Premature Burial, reviving Chaos to Shadow Monarch, before crushing all of our dreams with a Dark Calling, miracle fusing the Mole and Malicious Engrave for a second Evil Hero Dark Gaia. Now, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Tag Force games have this weird quirk where track cards just don't work when you want them to. I'm not kidding either, for some reason Konami has continuously buggered the traps to the point where their activation is extremely inconsistent. The game just won't let Mirror Force activate until his third attack. By that point, he's destroyed both of our monsters and leaving us in a losing position. If Mirror Force worked as intended, we could have actually won here. But no, we're now both left with an empty field as we cling on to the last sliver of life we have left. It all comes down to the top decking gods to determine the outcome of the duel, and we break drawing Buster Blader. Fortunately, we do still have the Dark Magic Curtain in hand, which allows us to special summon Dark Magician at the cost of half of our life points. Dark Magician deals a huge chunk of damage to the Supreme King, leaving him with 1600 points left. All we can do now is hope that he doesn't draw into another Dark Calling. Hao draws, and he ends his turn, ending the reign of the Supreme King with one final Dark Magic attack. With a wisp behind the time, he can sleep at night knowing he reclaimed the throne and saved his protege in the process. Event 2 is yet another flashback to the events of the alternate dimension, if you can believe it. This time, a tag duel against both Yubel and Adrian Gecko. Wouldn't Jesse being Yubel's partner here make a lot more sense? Now, despite the game's namesake, when it comes to the tag duels, you will rarely go up against teams whose decks have any sort of synergy. The only time that ever really comes up is when you're dueling two of the same person. Yubel's deck is centered around dark monsters that can cheese herself onto the field, and her various forms as quickly as possible. Mystic Tomato can summon her via its recruiter effect on destruction, and you have 2 copies of Samsara de Lotus, which is a Lone Flyer Blossom equivalent, which allows her to tribute it to special summon one Yubel monster from the deck. The Yubel cards in herself, Terror Incarnate and the Ultimate Nightmare can't be destroyed by battle, and don't take battle damage either to make up for their 0-point attack stats. The whole gimmick surrounding the Yubel cards is that when they're targeted for an attack, the numerous effects trigger which extend from burning the opponent's life points equal to the attacking monster's attack points, to also destroying monsters on the field. The trade-off, at least for Yubel and Incarnate, is that in Yubel's case you need to tribute a monster to keep her on the field, and Incarnate destroys all other cards on their side of the field. When they leave the field though, this allows them to special summon Yubel's next level, with the endgame revolving around getting into Ultimate Nightmare as quickly as possible. She plays 2 copies of each card just mentioned, so this can easily get nasty if she's able to pop herself with Incarnate's effects and create an offensive wall that we simply cannot deal with through conventional means. The rest of her deck is just filled with good stuff to keep the pressure on us. I've already mentioned the Mystic Tomatoes, but she can also special summon other powerful monsters like Snipe Hunter, that has a destruction ability if it rolls anything other than a 1 or a 6, alongside Spirit Reaper that can't be destroyed by battle. 3 copies of Armageddon Knight sends a Dark Monster to the grave on summon. Another way she can cheese out Yubel if she draws into a Monster Reborn, and is just otherwise great to thin the deck. Morphing Jar for the draw power, and a whole host of spell and trap staples designed to keep her in the game long enough to get Ultimate Nightmare on the board. Adrian, on the other hand, sports the Cloudian archetype, a package of water attribute monsters that usually can't be destroyed by battle. The main gimmick is the fog counters they can place on either themselves or the opponent's monster to make use of a variety of powerful effects. These can range from destroying a card on the field, to forcing the opponent to discard a card. Their main weakness is that they're automatically destroyed if they're switched into defense position, but that won't be happening given the card pool available to us. Adrian's main goal is to either fill the field with enough fog tokens to control the field and then tribute his monsters to summon either his 3000 attack boss monster in the Eye of Typhoon or Nimbusman, an otherwise weak monster stat wise with a measly 1000 attack points, but gains 500 points for every monster used for its tribute summon, and then gains even more attack points on the back of that for every fog counter currently placed on the field. This can beef up Nimbusman considerably if you don't find a way to keep his field in check. Like Yubel, he also plays a considerable package of staple spells and traps, with the addition of spells such as Salvage, that allows him to grab 2 water attribute monsters with 1500 or less attack from the grave back to his hand, recycling the weaker Cloudians when in a pinch. Unless we find a way to kill these guys extremely quickly, it's going to end up being an uphill battle if they're able to swarm the field with their impenetrable defense. We win the minigame to pick the turn order. Scissors rarely fails, and we decide to go first. An interesting tidbit to know about the Tag Force games is that whenever you tag duel, the AI partner will always go first, ironically making us the third duelist to make a play. This is going to be useful within the challenge in particular, as it gives our partner the chance to set up a decent board, with their often superior decks compared to what a Tem here is running. Jaden starts with a crazy opening hand of Miracle Fusion, Reinforcement of the Army, Torrential Tribute, Elemental Hero Avion, and Sparkman. Drawing for turn, he tops deck King of the Swamp, a really good fusion utility monster which allows you to use it as a substitute for a fusion material listed on the fusion monster. You can also pitch it to the grave to grab a polymerization from the deck, which Jaden does here. He then activates Rotor to grab a Bustinatrix from the deck. It's fusion time, baby! Jaden fuses the Avion and Bustinatrix in hand to summon his original ace monster in the Flame Wingman. He then uses the Miracle Fusion to fuse it with the King of the Swamp in the grave, summoning Shining Flare Wingman. Its effect kicks in, buffing his already decent attack stat line to 3100, and Jaden ends his turn by normal summoning the Sparkman from his hand alongside setting the Torrential Tribute. As long as they don't have Lightning Vortex or something, this is an amazing opening turn for us. Yubel draws a turn and doesn't have the same look as our partner did, setting a monster and 2 back rows before ending her turn. Our opening hand fares much better, consisting of Skilled Dark Magician, Magical Dimension, Buster Blader, Heavy Storm and Dark Magic Curtain to boot, and we draw a second Dark Curtain for our turn. Heavy Storm naturally removes both of their set cards, but I don't think either of them would have helped in their situation anyways. Being the king of theatrics alongside games, we immediately go for the Dark Magic Curtain, special summoning our ace monster for the cost of half of our life points. To circumvent a punishing top deck from Adrian, we set the Skilled Dark Magician just in case, proceeding to the battle phase. Shining Flare Wingman destroys the set card Armageddon Knight, and as per Wingman's effect, Yubel takes damage equal to the destroyed monster's attack, which in this case is 1400. They then take a further 4100 from the combined might of Sparkman and the Dark Magician, leaving the pair with a poverty 2500 life points. Not much else can be accomplished, and so it's time to see whether Adrian Gecko is capable of drawing the outs. Drawing for turn, he activates Sword of Revealing Light, buying them 3 turns to turn this around. This lets our Skilled Dark Magician face up per the effect. He then sets a monster and a spell or trap, concluding his turn. Jaden top decks Elemental Hero Blade Edge, summoning it to the field by tributing his Sparkman and our Skilled Dark Magician, ending the turn. Yubel sets a monster and 3 spell and traps before calling it a day. For our turn, we draw Polymerization, and like a Tem, we never let a good opportunity go to waste, fusing the Buster Blader in our hand with the Dark Magician on the field, fusion summoning Dark Paladin. Its first effect really isn't relevant as there are no dragons present on the field or in the grave, but the second might be useful later on, but with nothing we can do until swords expire, we end our turn. Adrian draws and immediately activates one of the back row Yubel set on their turn, Raigeki Break, destroying Shining Flare Wingman with the cost of discarding a card. He then activates her second back row, Giant Trunade. We don't have any back row at all, so I was puzzled at first, but they did this in order to send Swords of Revealing Light back to hand, refreshing the count. To prevent this, we activate Dark Paladin's effects, negating Trunade by discarding Magical Dimension. Adrian sets another back row before flipping Morphing Jar, forcing us to ditch our current hands and redrawing 5 cards. The card Adrian sent to the grave activates and is special summoned back to the field in attack position. Cloudian Storm Dragon adds the Cloud token to our Dark Paladin. For his normal summon, he plays Cloudian Syrus Trusdale. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Its effect activates placing 2 Cloud tokens on itself. It then removes them immediately to destroy Dark Paladin, leaving Blade Edge as the sole survivor. Jaden draws Miracle Fusion, immediately resolving it, combining the Blade Edge on the field with the Sparkman in the grave to fusion summon Elemental Hero Plasma Vice. With the end phase, swords finally expire, allowing us to attack on the start of our next turn. Yubel draws and activates Storm Dragon's effect to place a Cloud token on Plasma Vice. She switches Morphing Jar to defense position, ending her turn. We draw Dark Magician Girl and set the Magic Cylinder in our back row. Not wanting to fully commit, we set Old Vindictive Magician and enter the battle phase. Plasma Vice attacks Cloudian Stratus and Yubel responds with a continuous trap Spirit Barrier, preventing battle damage as long as they have at least 1 monster on their side of the field. The card resolves and the battle concludes with Cloudian Stratus still standing as it can't be destroyed by battle. We end our turn. Adrian draws and activates the effect of Storm Dragon once again to place a second Cloud token on Plasma Vice. He then tributes his Cloud Dragon, Cloudian Stratus, and one of their set monsters to advance summon Cloudian Nimbusman. Due to its effect, Nimbusman is immediately buffed from 1000 to a meaty 4000 attack points. Having gained the upper hand, Adrian attacks into Plasma Vice with Nimbusman, falling straight into a Thames Trap, or Cylinders in this case, negating the battle and dealing 4000 life points to the pair, winning us the duel. Shooketh at the feat that she officially joins Yuma as the only other duelist to ever lose to the effect of Magic Cylinder, Yubel tries to end it all by fusing the 12 dimensions. Jaden consoles her tragic circumstances and decides to fuse with her instead, ensuring she'll never have to face the embarrassment of the obvious bait ever again. The next day, a 10 pulls an all-nighter constructing the deck that he's going to use to slap Jaden during the graduation duel. Jaden later shows up and follows our good vibes, planning to leave the island, and wants us to accompany him to tell Chancellor Shepard. Shepard gets a phone call mid-convo and agrees to let Jaden go if he meets up with Sartorius at the volcano. The latter still recovering from the dealings with the Light of Destruction. It turns out that all of the shenanigans over the past 3 years has caused some interdimensional disturbance on the island, which is the reason for all the dodgy dealings as of late. The conversation is cut short by a mysterious man in darkness, Truman, or Poundland Mr. T in the sub. Apparently we're getting too close to the truth, like it's the Matrix or something, and we're forced into a shadow duel. Truman duels alone, so we only need to do one deck summary here as they both use the exact same cards. Most of Truman's deck package is actually rather similar to Yubel's deck, believe it or not. They both use a dark attribute centric deck, revolving around Mystic Tomatoes to get their respective monsters out on the field. Snipe Hunter, Spirit Reaper, Armageddon Knight. Where have I seen all these before? Where this deck differs is the lack of Yubel cards, replacing them with the Phantom of Chaos, a 4-star monster with 0 tag. This has the ability to banish an effect monster from Truman's grave, and this card gains both the name and stats of the card banished until the end phase. This becomes an accessible way for him to hit over our defences, by banishing some of his stronger monsters like Dark Horus or Volcanic Queen with the effect, and end up with a 3000 attack beast state that's summoned without tribute. This monster can't attack us directly though, so we can at least be thankful for that. The problem is he can then bring those banished monsters back with the return from the different dimension. His boss monster is a 2400 attacker called Dark Nephesis. It has an effect that allows it to be special summoned to the field the turn after it's milled to the grave, as long as he has exactly 3 dark monsters in the grave to trigger the effect. He can then destroy a spell or trap if it's successfully special summoned this way. The spell and trap package contain all the staples you'd expect at this point: Reborn, Heavy Storm, Mirror Force, etc. However, they do play a lot more cards alongside Return from the Different Dimension, such as Dimension Fusion to continuously revive the monsters they banished. Because they need exactly 3 dark monsters in the grave to even access their boss monster, and the fact that Phantom of Chaos can't attack us directly, the deck's tempo is significantly slower to our previous opponents, so as long as we don't break, we have a good shot of beating them here. Oh, we braked. Never mind then. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Jaden's opening hand consists of Mystical Space Typhoon, Dandelion, Miracle Fusion, Neospatian Dark Panther, and Elemental Hero Stratus, drawing Neos Alias. He sets the Dandelion and the MST before ending the turn. Truman summons Mystic Tomato in attack position. Destroying Dandelion triggers his effect, summoning 2 fluff tokens to our side of the field in defense mode whenever it hits the graveyard. These tokens can't be used as tributes on the turn it's summoned, but that's irrelevant to us since they were summoned on his turn. He then ends the turn after setting 2 back row. Our opening hand consists of the beloved Magic Cylinder, Magical Dimension, Light Force Sword, Dark Magic Curtain, and Dust Tornado, drawing Magician Valkyria. Using the MST Jaden set, we destroy one of the back rows, revealing Tornado Wall to the grave. We then set the 3 traps from our hand, activating Dark Magic Curtain to special summon Dark Magician from the deck. This would have been a great opportunity to take away some life points, but I was rushing and accidentally skipped straight to the end phase like a right melt. This won't be the last time this happens in this run either. Thankfully, Truman does nothing to take advantage of the blunder, only summoning a 1400 point monster in Dark Archetype, taking out one of the fluff tokens and setting another back row. In the end phase, we trigger the Dust Tornado set on the prior turn to immediately take out the back row he set. A bit of a punish as the destroyed card was a Mystical Space Typhoon, wasting our limited back row removal that we have. Jaden draws Morphing Jar and activates the Light Force Sword we set, removing a random card from Truman's hand until the 4th standby phase. Jaden summons his Neos Alias and goes straight into the battle phase, attacking Dark Archetype with our Dark Magician. The second back row ends up being fucking Mirror Force of all things, making the blunder with the Dust Tornado hurt all the more. We're forever punished. Being put firmly on the back foot, Jaden can do nothing but end his turn. Puzzlingly enough, Truman opts to tribute both of his monsters to summon Dark Nephis. He could have actually dealt damage here as the only monster we have is the fluff token, and then tribute summon in main phase 2, but I'm not complaining about a misplay. He attempts to hit over our token, and Jaden negates the attack with our magic cylinder, making Truman take his first bit of damage in the duel. We draw the Tricky and are forced to make a weird play here. As you know, Tricky is really good because it's a level 5 2000 beat state that can be special summoned by discarding a card. However, with our current hand, with Magical Dimension and Magician's Valkyria, the correct play here is to instead summon the weaker Magician's Valkyria. This unlocks the play of using Magical Dimension, and as I mentioned in the card by card, despite needing a spellcaster already on the field to play Magical Dimension, the monster required for the tribute doesn't have to be a spellcaster at all. So we sacrifice our fluff token instead, special summoning the Tricky and popping the Dark Nephis. We then attack directly, inflicting a total of 3600 life points, leaving them one turn away from defeat. Truman responds with Premature Burial, reviving Dark Nephis at the cost of 800 life points. This forces its effect to trigger though, destroying one spell or trap on the field. Since this is a mandatory effect, he has to destroy Premature Burial, as it's the only back row on the field at the moment, essentially wasting the thing altogether. To recover from the blunder, he sets one monster and calls it a turn. Jaden draws Oversoul and resolves the effect, reviving one vanilla elemental hero monster from the graveyard. Since Neos Alias's effect considers its card name to be that of the real Neos when in the grave or on the field, this forces Oversoul to consider it a vanilla monster, allowing Jaden to summon it. Attempting an attack for game, Jaden attacks the face down with the Tricky, revealing Bloody Spirit Reaper. This monster in particular can't be destroyed by battle, so they're safe for now. Truman on his turn sets another monster. We draw Monster Reborn, and with nothing else that we can really do at this moment, we attack into the face down Armageddon Knight with Valkyria, leaving Spirit Reaper as the sole defense. Light's Force Swords officially expires upon Truman's turn, returning the card that was initially banished to the hand. He sets one back row, and activates the effect of Dark Nephis from hand, where if they have 3 dark monsters in the graveyard, they could mill this card by banishing 2 of the darks, and on his next turn he can special summon it from the graveyard. Now on a bit of a time clock, Jaden draws Elemental Hero Prisma, summoning Neospatian Dark Panther in attack mode, contact using both itself and Neos Alias on the field to fusion summon Dark Neos. Its effect allows Jaden to negate the effect of one monster on the field, targeting Spirit Reaper and removing its battle invulnerability for the turn. He attempts game only for Truman to revive one of the banished Mystic Tomatoes with his trap card, successfully stalling out the rest of the battle phase. As per its effect, Dark Neos is removed from the field at the end of the turn. Dark Nephis is revived once again at the start of Truman's turn, providing them agency to mount a counterattack. They are forced to attack into Magician's Valkyria, as its effect forces itself to be the only spellcaster they're allowed to target, sparing Tricky for the time being. We do take 800 damage for the pleasure though. We draw another Dark Magic Curtain, opting to play the Monster Reborn in our hand instead to revive the Dark Magician in the grave, sparing our life points. Since we now have the out to the beat stake, we hit over Dark Nephis, reducing their life points to 500. Rather than attacking and triggering the tomato right now, we end our turn until we have enough resources on board to hit over multiple of them and go for game. Truman draws and musters up a single back row, concluding their turn. Jaden draws the spell Wrath of Neos, summoning Stratos and resolving its effect, adding Neos Alias to hand. Entering the battle phase, he attempts to swing into the tomato with Stratos, punishing us once again for our complacency with another Mirror Force. The card is limited in this ban list, but because both Truman run the same deck, they have a total of 2 copies. All they need now is a strong monster to deal the remaining 3200 damage to win. Truman doesn't get it though and attacks with Mystic Tomato, leaving us with only 1800 points and sets another card. At this point they've run out of Mirror Forces, and as such we draw Brain Control. Just in case the back row they set was a Torrential Tribute, we instead use Brain Control to take control of the Mystic Tomato at the cost of 800 life points, ending the game with their own monster. We were punished repeatedly by Mirror Force, but the King of Games always finds a way. With a few days going by and the natural disasters continuing to plague the island, we finally get insight as to who might be behind all of this. Fujiwara was an Obelisk Blue student who joined the academy alongside Zane and Atticus. It said his skill eclipsed both of them during that era as well. Like Atticus, he got caught up in Kagemaru's attempts at reviving Nightshroud, and was transported to the Darkness realm where the latter originated from. Now he's back to plunge the rest of the world into the very same darkness he's returned from, Having defeated Atticus, he converts him back into his Nitro form and the final duel begins. Despite all of the build up insisting he's above the level of Zane and Atticus, Fujiwara is genuinely a letdown of a duelist. He plays a control deck using a new archetype known as Clear World, a package of dark attribute monsters that aren't treated as darks when on the field. It sounds weird, but it makes sense when you bring up the field spell sharing the deck's namesake, Clear World. Clear World, when active on the field, inflicts a number of effects applied to both players depending on the attribute of the monsters that they currently control. All of these effects are detrimental to some degree. Light forcing you to reveal your hand, wind attributes make it so you have to pay 500 points in cost to activate spell cards, water forces you to discard a card in the end phase, fire burns you for 1000 points of damage, and dark, the one that actually matters here, prevents you from declaring an attack if you have a dark attribute monster on the field. As mentioned, clear monsters aren't affected by Clear World itself, so if we're dueling Fujiwara on his own, this could actually pose a problem. Thankfully for us, he isn't dueling us alone. His partner is Nitro, and do I need to remind you what deck Atticus pilots in this form? That's right, it's Red Eyes, an archetype consisting of nothing but dark attribute monsters. Red Eyes is very much affected by the effects of Clear World. So what we essentially have here is a dude who wants to lock us down and prevent us from attacking with our strongest monsters, all the while cooking his partner in the process with the same restrictions. Now to be fair, Atticus does play an overall dragon oriented package similar to Zane's Underworld deck in this game, using Future Fusion to move 5 dragons for 5-headed dragon, and Dragon's Mirror to get it on the field even earlier, or Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon to swarm the field with his strongest dragons through its effect. But none of that really matters when his AI will prioritise Red Eyes over anything else. Whereas with us, we can just let Jaden take control of the duel until we draw into one of our fewer non-dark monsters. Overall, we should be fine. It'll be a slower paced duel like Fujiwara wants, but he won't be able to attack us either, providing Atticus turbos into Red Eyes, a 5-headed dragon like we expect. Jaden's opening hand consists of Neos Alias, Honest, Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, a Hero Merges, and a spell card I can't quite make out, drawing Neospatian Pathfinder. He immediately resolves Pathfinder's effect, discarding it to add the field spell Neospace to his hand from the deck, activating it. He summons Neos Alias in attack position and sets a Hero Merges, ending the turn. This Yami Marik ripoff plays Allure of Darkness, a pot of greed type card that allows him to draw 2 cards from the deck. He then has to banish 1 dark monster from his hand, and if he fails to do so, he must discard his entire hand. His deck is nothing but dark monsters, so there's no shot of him missing the cost. Neospace is destroyed to make way for his own field spell, Clear World, and the shenanigans begin. He then summons Clear Phantom, a 1200 point attacker, dark attribute monster. They gave it the effect that it isn't treated as Wando, so he can still attack, which he does, prompting Jaden to activate a Hero Merges. Fujiwara has to pick 1 card from Jaden's hand, and if it's a monster, he can summon it. Fujiwara hits Honest, and so Jaden places it in defense position. Neos Alias destroys Clear Phantom on the clapback, dealing the first bit of damage of the duel. Clear Phantom resolves its second event, destroying Neos Alias and milling the top 3 cards from Jaden's deck to the graveyard. One of the cards milled happened to be Dandelion, and so we get 2 fluff tokens placed on our side of the field. Fujiwara plays Premature Burial, reviving Clear Phantom at the cost of an extra 800 points, ending his turn. Our starting hand consists of Light Force Sword, 2 Magical Dimensions, Brain Control, and Mirror Force, drawing the Tricky. We set Light Force Sword and tribute one of the fluff tokens to summon Tricky, preserving our hand for the time being. A misplay, as I should have used Brain Control to grab his Clear Phantom and tribute that instead. Tunnel Vision can be a pain sometimes. We lose the Tricky as per Clear Phantom's second effect, a situation entirely preventable, and Honest deals a direct hit to Fujiwara. Dark Magician is one of the cards milled, and we end our turn setting the Mirror Force. Nitro draws and summons Red Eyes Black Shake, an effects monster that allows him to tribute it to turbo out Red Eyes from the hand, which he does. We try to counter this by chaining Light Force Sword, removing 1 card from his hand to the banish zone. He ends his turn without attacking, as Red Eyes is a dark monster and subdued under the effects of Clear World. Do you see what I mean now? Jaden draws or Oversoul, setting Aqua Dolphin and switching Honest into defense mode. The AI, not having a clue into what to do to resolve its stunlock, destroys 2 of its own copies of Clear World by replaying it over and over again. All it had to do here was set the copy, and that would have destroyed the already activated Clear World. Since he still can't attack, he sets a monster and ends his turn. I am now going to summarise the remaining turns of this duel, because we're both stunned here for a good 10 minutes. He couldn't do anything because of Clear World, and we couldn't get over his Red Eyes Black Dragon anywhere. Basically, they wasted a normal mana crossout on our set Aqua Dolphin, building up enough board presence for Fujiwara to summon his Ace Clear World monster, ending up with a decent board of monsters and 2 set cards. Jaden then plays Neospatian Grand Mole and attacks the Red Eyes. This triggers the effect, bouncing itself and Red Eyes back to the hand. Since the Cleo monster can't be treated as a dark attribute monster, this unlocked their ability to attack us again, something Fujiwara takes advantage of and runs right into the Mirror Force we set, wiping their monster zones clear. We then draw Mystical Space Typhoon, and I was going to use it to destroy Clear World so we could attack with a Skilled Dark Magician in our hand. However, we're caught blocked by the Fluff token on our side of the field. Because of its wind attribute, we're not able to activate the spell card due to the effect of Clear World, so we're locked out again. Night Shroud activates Clear Wall, meaning we can't destroy the Clear monsters as long as the Clear World remains on the field. This puts 1 spell counter on our Skilled Dark Magician because of a spell card activating. Just like before, there is nothing any of us can do for several turns. In this time, Jaden summons Stratos to add Prisma to hand, and all that's achieved is that we continue to advance our boards. This is until Fujiwara activates the continuous trap attribute Chameleon, allowing him to change the attribute of one of our monsters, and he targets Valkyria, changing its attribute to Earth. Clear World then activates, forcing us to target and destroy 1 monster on our side of the field. We can choose the target though, and so we sacrifice the Fluff token. Jaden's turn amounts to nothing, and Fujiwara brings back our Dark Magician with Monster Reborn. Jaden counters this with his trap Hero Blast, which allows him to add Neos to his hand from the grave, destroying Dark Magician in the process. We draw Dust Tornado and finally have a means of taking out Clear World for good. In the meantime, setting MST will allow Jaden to clear more of the back row if it survives the next turn. Chameleon attributes activates targeting Skilled Dark Magician, turning it into a water monster. Clear World then forces us to destroy one of our monsters, and so I target the Skilled Dark Magician just to get it out of the way, in the event we're unsuccessful in destroying Clear World. Night Shroud passes his turn without playing anything, and we destroy Clear World with the Dust Tornado, freeing us from all of the restrictions placed on us. This also has the consequence of destroying Clear Wall, as it needs Clear World to be on the field. Just to make sure Jaden doesn't whiff here, we activate MST ourselves, which counts as a quick play spell, destroying one of the 2 set cards on the side of the field, which just so happens to be a Mirror Force. Let's go! The AI in Tag Force tend to prioritise face-up cards even if they aren't really doing much, so I had to minimise this risk, a gamble that certainly paid off. It's Jaden's turn and he draws Neospatian Scarab, activating Oversoul, reviving the real elemental hero Neos from the graveyard. He then contact fuses with Grand Mole to fusion summon Grand Neos. The AI will also prioritise summoning the Ace monsters even when it's not suitable to do so. Jaden sacrifices our other 2 monsters to summon another copy of Neos from hand. We aren't punished for this thankfully, and he attacks the game, winning the duel. Clear World genuinely sucks balls, bro. Fujiwara apologises profusely for playing such a garbage archetype. Attempt slash Jaden into next week with Slifer in the graduation duel, and we leave Duel Academy only to be ambushed by a masked weirdo on a motorcycle, setting off the events of a really cool tie-in movie that will suddenly be important to the lore around 30 years from now. Syrus Trusdale will be our next partner, and I'm kind of disappointed as he isn't piloting the Cyber deck like he should be doing at this stage of the story. Instead, he still uses his Vehicleroids, a lackluster archetypes of machines with a variety of utility effects to make them somewhat playable. Now, to be fair, Syrus' deck isn't the worst I've seen, believe it or not. I had to shift through a Thames card pool after all. For what the campaign asks of us, it shouldn't be too horrendous. Syrus has smartly packed his deck with some of the more useful roids, like Drillroid, a 1600 point attacker that can destroy any defense position monster that it battles before the damage calculation. This prevents a lot of flip and recruiter effects from happening, as the cards destroyed via this effect isn't technically as a result of battle. Steamroid has a decent 1800 point stat line that gains 500 points in the damage step whenever it attacks. This card is very much a glass cannon, because whenever it's attacked in response, it will lose 500 points instead. So pretty much anything at this stage of the game can hit over Steamroid at any time. Kiteroid is an extremely useful hand trap, allowing him to discard it to the grave to negate an attack. And it gets even better, as the same copy can then be banished from the grave to negate a second attack. Syrus plays 3 of these in total, so he can prevent up to 6 attacks potentially, which will buy us a lot of time if we end up bricking ourselves. The only other thing worth mentioning here is the limiter removal, which doubles the attack points of all machine type monsters on the player's field, but those monsters are destroyed in the end phase. I don't foresee a use for this defensively, but it does have a ton of OTK potential if Syrus is able to keep his monsters on board for long enough. I would argue this deck is way better than Season 4 Jaden's, because of the fact he plays the brick heavy Neos. With all of that said, I think it's time for me to finally reveal the second deck we'll be using for this challenge, the Egyptian Gods. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Tag Force games have the precedent of adding anime exclusive cards into these games, way before they ever became legal in the real TCG or OCG. Breaker Soul is one of the more infamous cards available here, but this also extends to the Egyptian God monsters as well. For this deck, I built it around Obelisk the Tormentor specifically. Ra, for some reason, is forbidden in this format, and I can't for the life of me understand why. Its effect simply isn't a worthy trade-off for the investment you need to build on board to even summon it. Slifer, whilst legal, simply wasn't the way to go either, as its attack stat is dependent on the amount of cards in our hand times 1000. With the lack of draw power these decks have to begin with, and the fact we need to somehow get 3 bodies on board for the tributes, there will be zero chances of entering a scenario where we can both get Slifer on board and somehow have more than 4 cards in our hand. Obelisk's flat 4000 attack is simply more consistent than a God in Slifer that will vary between 1 to 3k in the best case scenario. As for the card by card, we're running 2 copies of Beta the Magnet Warrior, a playset of King and Queen's Knight that will serve as our main means of getting enough monsters on board to tribute for Obelisk. King Knight's effect allows us to special summon Jax Knight from the deck if we summon it whilst Queen's Knight is already on the field. Jax Knight is a level 5 vanilla that we're running at 2 copies because I want to reduce the chance of drawing into it if possible. To join them are 2 copies of Summoned Skull. If Dark Magician didn't have a way to turbo itself out, this would be the superior card, as it has the same stat line but only requires 1 tribute. This deck does have a means of getting it on the field quickly though that we'll get into later. 2 copies of 4-star Ladybug. Ladybug destroys all level 4 monsters on the opponent's field on flip summon. Most of the beat sticks in this game, barring fusions and boss monsters, are level 4, so in theory this should provide a ton of value. For the last 3 monsters, we're of course running a playset of both Magician's Valkyria and the Tricky. Valkyria strictly for its lockdown ability. If we can pull it off, then all we need is another monster on the board, which will be far easier to do when the opponents can't target our spellcasters. And the Tricky is just too good not to include, given its ability to cheese itself out to the field. I did consider playing Tricky Spell 4, that allows us to summon Tricky tokens equal to the monsters on the opponent's side of the field. The problem I had with this is that this spell pretty much becomes a dead draw whenever we don't have Tricky available. And because we don't really play any other cards aside from Tricky that have a discard cost, it's not like we could use it as fodder to advance any other players. Karibo is also another avenue I considered through Multiply, but that was quickly shot down as the tokens summoned via Multiply can't be used as tributes. To round off the monsters, we're playing 2 copies of Obelisk the Tormentor. I feel 2 is the right amount as we want it to show up as fast as possible without becoming a potential break. Worst case scenario, we could discard 1 to play the Tricky and then revive it for a turn with Monster Reborn. Ideally, we're going to want to summon this the intended way so it at least has staying power since it can't be destroyed by card effects that target. Of course, it's still vulnerable to cards that don't target like Mirror Force, Lightning Vortex, etc. So I don't think the protection effect is really going to do much in this format. For the spell traps, we're running 2 copies of Ancient Rules. Atem uses this during his turn against Paradox in the Bonds Beyond Time movie, and I always just assumed it was a card that was introduced later on, but no, it's in the game. Really good in general as it allows us to play a level 5 or above vanilla monster without a tribute, and we play several high level vanillas. Obviously the intent of this is to turbo summon Skull on board, but if we end up with a bad hand, we can always go straight into Jax Knight instead, who is somewhat beefy himself at 1900 attack. As always, we're playing the staples in Brain Control, MST, Heavy Storm, Upstart, Goblin, Mirror Force, Magical Cylinders. It turns out Atem did use Fisher at one point in the anime, so I added that for extra removal. The only new trap card we've added is Magical Hearts. Now, Spellbinding Circle does have way more longevity than the Hearts. The fact that it keeps the equipped monster from attacking had me heavily considering it. The problem is, in this format where all the removal spells are legal and monsters with board wiping effects are commonplace, Even though Spellbinding Circle has way more staying power than the hats, I went with the hats because it doesn't stay on the field after resolution. The hats also have a deck thinning property, as we have to choose 2 spell or traps from the deck to serve as the decoys. And when a Tem doesn't play a lot of cards with draw power to begin with, that's important, I feel. Syrus' story is one of self-reflection. As he lives through his final days at the academy before graduation, we stumble into scenarios that Syrus himself had to go through and learn from. The first is a callback to the time where Syrus bet a rare card on a duel and Zane interrupted the duel because the trap his opponent had would have caused Syrus to take the effect damage from Power Bond. Only this time it's a Slifer Red student promising to drop out of school if he lost to the Obelisk Blue elites. Syrus is able to call the duel off, and thus we duel against the Slifer Reds, Nathan and Taku, in a tag duel. Nathan sports a BES beatdown deck, a series of chunky machine type monsters that add counters to themselves when summoned to the field. They can then evade destruction by using these counters. They are destroyed automatically whenever they run out of them, but Nathan circumvents this with his Boss Rush continuous spell. He can special summon another BES monster the turn 1 is destroyed as long as the spell is active. Ideally, he wants a number of these beasts on the field before committing an attack with a plethora of equipped spells he brings to the table. Mage Power gives the monster equipped 500 extra attack for every card placed in the spell and trap card zones. Megamorph doubles the attack points as long as he has less life points. Unlimited removal, of course, is here to take advantage of the machine typing, so if we're given a bad hand, he is more than capable of OTKing us. Taku's deck, in comparison, is far less complicated. He's playing a basic warrior deck consisting of the 3 knights that we're playing, alongside Gearfried, the Iron Knight, and its respective forms. Guildford and Familiar Knight that can summon 1 level 4 from hand when it's destroyed. And of course the obnoxious Celtic Guardian that can't be destroyed by battle involving monsters with 1900 points or more. He wants to keep his field around to serve as tribute fodder for the likes of Guildford. His spells are mostly comprised of really old equipped spells for the warrior type, I guess to help them survive for long enough, and the only trap card he uses is several copies of Royal Decree to negate every other trap card on the field. Out of anything here, the Royal Decrease is the card that I am wary of, as his partner Nathan has more than enough firepower that we simply can't hit over without a Mirror Force, or by somehow getting Obelisk on the field. Syrus' opening hand consists of Shrink, Emergency Provisions, Drill Roid, Dimension Fusion, and Submarine Roid, drawing Truck Roid for turn. He sets the Truck Roid alongside Shrink and the Emergency Provisions. Nathan summons BES Assault Core in attack mode, tributing it to summon Big Core, a 2300 point B-stick with a rather annoying effect. When it's successfully summoned, you place 3 counters on the card, and for every battle it's involved in, it loses a counter. It can't be destroyed by battle until it has no counters equipped, giving it some pretty beefy staying power given our lackluster decks. Big Core attacks and Syrus counters it with Shrink, halving its attack points. Truck Roid survives as it has a meaty 2000 point defense stat, and Nathan takes the difference as damage. He plays Monster Reborn in main phase 2, reviving Assault Core in defense position before setting a card and ending the turn. Our opening hand consists of 2 copies of Beta the Magnet Warrior, King's Knight, Karibo and Mirror Force, drawing Upstart Goblin for turn, and immediately activating it, providing a fresh draw. We draw Light Force Sword and set that alongside the Mirror Force, concluding the turn by summoning Karibo in attack position to bait out the Big Core. Totally wasn't a misplay. It's not like I was trying to play Beta or anything, of course. Taku plays the Broken Bamboo Sword, equipping it to the Big Core. We counter with Light Force Sword, pitching one of their cards to the Banish Zone. Big Core attacks into Karibo, and I tried to activate Mirror Force. I really did, I promise you. Mash X, Held X, the game simply won't allow it for some reason, and so we take 2000 points of damage as a result. Taku ends his turn by summoning Gearfried Iron Knight in attack position. Syrus draws Stealth Roid and summons Drill Roid in attack mode. He attempts to destroy the defense position Assault Core per its effect, however Taku counters with Sakuretsu Armor, destroying Drill Roid. Nathan sacrifices Gearfried the Iron Knight for another Big Core, giving it 3 counters per the effect. He switches Assault Core into attack and proceeds to battle with Truck Roid. Mirror Force thankfully activates for Syrus. He then nearly gives me a heart attack by chaining Emergency Provisions, targeting the Mirror Force he just activated. I didn't know both X still end up resolving, so I was fuming at this point. The AI clearly knew better, and our life points get a nice buff whilst clearing the entire board. Nathan ends his turn and we draw Premature Burial. There's nothing really in our graveyard worth reviving right now, and so we deal 1700 points of direct damage with Beta, ending the turn. Taku breaks, giving Syrus a clear path at the start of the next turn. Syrus draws Vehicle Construction Zone and summons Stealth Roid in attack position. Switching Truck Roid to attack also, he deals a combined 3900 points of damage with all 3 monsters. Nathan draws and Light Force Sword resolves, giving him back the card confiscated 4 turns ago. Not that it did them any good, mind, as they break, which concludes the duel. I did use card destruction just to see what we would have drawn, and it wasn't anything crazy. As I mentioned before, Syrus' whole story arc in this game is essentially centered around the growth he's made throughout his journey. You really get to see how grown up he's become because of the events of the show, standing up for others when before he would have just run and cowered behind Jaden. Even Chumley seems shocked by his maturity. Oh yeah, he's back for some reason now. It's new card day, so Syrus drags us to the Academy card shop, only to find the 2 Obelisk Blues who were causing trouble in the previous event, now harassing Missy and Jasmine about their lack of skill. I mean, they ain't wrong, but still. Syrus steps in and catches a major stray, challenging them to a tag duel. Sedena's deck can only really be recognised as a light focused deck. I can't really call it a good stuff strategy either, as whilst it does have some good stuff in Marshmallow, DD Warrior Lady, Sabog the Thunder Monarch, and 3 copies of Sacred Crane for draw power, this deck ends up lacking powerful lights such as Honest, Cyber Dragon, etc. He seems to pivot to a control style strategy with the inclusion of Barrier Statue of the Heaven at 1 copy, which ensures only light monsters can be special summoned when it's on the board. This synergizes well with the 2 copies of the Creator in his deck, alongside the playset of Creator Incarnate to turbo out the former. The Creator allows him to revive light monsters from the grave, so if he's able to lock us down with Barrier, he can really build up a decent board presence of high powered light monsters. He then adds Card of Safe Returns, which will then resolve, and he's able to draw a free card from the deck every time a monster is special summoned from the grave. He plays through these by the way, so he'll be enjoying a ton of draw power. Luminous Spark is a simple field spell that buffs his already decent light monsters, making them even more annoying to swing over. And of course, he plays all the staples you'd expect. His traps however are far more focused on wiping our board entirely, rather than simply aiming to negate the battle phase. You of course know what Mirror Force and Sakuretsu Armor do, but Sedena also carries a copy of Radiant Mirror Force. It basically does the same thing as Mirror Force, but can only be activated if we have 3 or more monsters on the field. To round off his traps, he's running Wall of Revealing Light, an extremely annoying trap card that control decks around this time tend to use. Essentially, he pays the cost of life points in the 1000s, and any monster that has less attack points than the cost is unable to conduct a battle. Since all of our monsters bar Obelisk are less than 3k, he doesn't really need to pay more than that to resolve this effect and take advantage of it. Thankfully, he only runs Wall at 1 copy, so if we draw into one of our many back row removal, it shouldn't have the staying power he's hoping for. His compadre Pablo one-ups Sedena in the contest of having the deck with the most degenerate strategy. He plays stall basically. Bro runs a 60 card deck, by the way, consisting of nothing but every recruiter being played at 3 copies. Kamari, Rat, Giant Germ, Nimble Momonga, Tomato, Mass Dragon, he has them all. Running 2 copies of Chaos Necromancer, an extremely weak level 2 monster, his game plan is to drag out the duel long enough for him to get all of his recruiters in the graveyard, so he can summon this thing, as he gains 300 points for every monster in his grave. So as you can imagine, with him running 3 of literally everything, it's going to get ugly fast if he has his way. He plays 3 copies of Magical Merchant as well to speed up this milling process, alongside drawing into one of his many powerful spell cards that he has access to. Pablo, being the greedy fuck that he is also playing both variations of Morphing Jar. The first for drawing power, he's running a 60 card deck after all, and Morphing Jar 2 will wipe both fields clean and force us to draw another 5 cards, summoning the level 4 monsters in defense position. This will reset the tempo in his favour if we ever find ourselves ahead, as he can just destroy our entire board presence before drawing into the many recruiters he stacked his deck with. Christ, we haven't even gone over his spell and traps yet. He has 45 monsters in this thing. His spell and traps all have effects that serve 2 specific purposes. The first is to fill the graveyard with as many cards as possible, and then use certain effects that require a stacked graveyard to either buff his own monsters or burn us for damage. He runs 3 copies of Blasting the Ruins, a trap that deals 3000 points of burn damage if he has over 30 cards in the graveyard. The high deck count and the merchant suddenly makes sense now, right? If the duel draws out, he could very well burn us for 9k of damage. Our only chance is if he mills it by accident with card destruction. He runs 2 copies of Creature Swap, a spell that forces both of us to choose one monster and then take control of the respective monsters selected. Because he's playing nothing but weak recruiters for the most part, he's going to use this to take one of our stronger monsters and then get the +1 from the recruiter effect when he destroys it. The rest of his spell traps are cards that will slow the game down to a crawl. Stumbling makes any monster summoned be changed to defense position, meaning if he gets this online, we will only be able to attack every other turn. Conversely, the Dark Door puts a hard limit on both players where only one monster can conduct a battle phase. So not only is he preventing us from attacking the turn we summon a monster, he's restricting us so we'll never be able to break through his board of recruiters. Finally, the trap Spirit Barriers effect states that they cannot take damage if they control a monster. Our only consistent means of dealing damage with this will be through direct attacks, and Pablo is confident that we will rarely get the opportunity to do so. There's not much else I can really say. These guys suck, and we have our work cut out for us this time. No wonder they're such assholes. Syrus's opening hand consists of Truckroid, Drillroid, Monster Reborn, Steamroid, and Rush Recklessly, drawing Kiteroid for turn. He sets both the Truckroid and the Rush Recklessly, passing it over to Sedena. Sedena plays the continuous spell of Card of Safe Returns, allowing him to draw 1 card every time a monster is special summoned from the graveyard. He then sets a monster and 2 other cards, ending the turn. Our opening hand consists of Ancient Rules, Mirror Force, Queen's Knight, Beta the Magnet Warrior, and Summon Skull, drawing Magician's Valkyria. We activate the Ancient Rules, special summoning Summon Skull, and normal summon Magician's Valkyria, conducting the battle phase. Magician's Valkyria attacks the set monster and Sedena wipes both of our B-sticks off the field with Mirror Force. I should have saw that coming, to be fair. Pablo tributes to face their monster, which was a Marshmelon, to summon the Poverty UFO-roid in attack position, attacking our set Truckroid. The attack resolves and they take 800 points of damage. Pablo sets 1 back row. Syrus draws his copy of Mirror Force and revives Summon Skull with Monster Reborn. He then normal summons Steamroid in attack position. Steamroid attacks the UFO-roid and its effect triggers buffing its attack by 500 to 2300. UFO-roid is destroyed and that inflicts 1100 points of damage to Pablo. UFO-roid's effect then resolves from the grave, allowing him to special summon another copy. Summoned Skull attempts to destroy the second UFO-roid but is countered by Sakuretsu armor, destroying it. Sedena plays Premature Burial, reviving the UFO-roid. He then draws per the effect of cards as it returns, activating Reinforcement of the Army to bring DD Warrior Lady to hand. Tributing one of the UFO-roids, he plays Saborg the Thunder Monarch, popping our Truckroid per its effect. He attempts to swing over Steamroid with Saborg, only to be countered by Mirror Force, having their field completely wiped. We draw Summon Skull, summoning Beta the Magnet Warrior in attack position. We attack directly with both our monsters, dealing a total of 3500 points of direct damage, leaving them with a measly 1800 life points. Pablo plays the Recruiter UFO Turtle in attack position, swinging over Steam Gyroid. We on the other hand counter with Syrus's quick play spell Rush Recklessly, boosting Steam Gyroid's attack by 700 for the battle phase, making it just strong enough to withstand the attack even with the negative side effect. Pablo loses 600 points as a result and summons a copy of Mass Dragon once UFO Turtle's effects resolves upon hitting the graveyard. He ends his turn by playing Stumbling, which will force any monster summoned from this point into defense position. Syrus draws Heavy Storm and clears the board with it, then summoning Drillroid in attack position and entering the battle phase. Drillroid destroys the Mass Dragon and inflicts 200 points of damage. Mass Dragon's effect resolves, allowing Pablo to summon another one upon its destruction, in defense position. Beta clears the second Mass Dragon, and Troop Dragon is summoned to the field in its place. Steamroid takes out the Troop Dragon, only for the same thing to occur. Syrus ends his turn by setting Mirror Force. Sedena banishes the Marshmelon and Saborg from grave to special summon the Solar Purity Light, a 2000 point beatstick. He then normal summons DD Warrior Lady from his hand. Attempting to destroy the Steamroid with DD Warrior Lady, Syrus counters with Mirror Force, clearing the field once again. Troop Dragon remains as it was in defense position at the time of the battle. We draw another copy of Queen's Knight, tributing our Beta for Summon Skull. We swing over the Troop Dragon with Drillroid, triggering the lasser's effect of automatically destroying defense position monsters prior to damage calculation. This bypasses the effect of the Recruiter monster, so Troop Dragon can't resolve, winning the duel with a direct attack from our Summon Skull. To be fair, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Syrus really put in some work with the counterplays. He even wins the hearts of the ladies and utterly fumbles the bag in the process. I guess some things never quite change, huh? Our morning coffee is interrupted by a wounded Syrus. He goes on to explain he had to duel against a duelist using the Psycho style, which is the natural rival to Zane's Cyber style, dueling in the place of Zane using his deck. You mean to tell me this kid wakes a temp up for the most mundane adventures possible, but the one time he has something interesting going on, he doesn't invite us? I see what kind of friend you are, Syrus. This is why Jaden replaced you with Jesse in Season 3. We are interrupted at the cliffside by two Obelisk Blues, Dante and Brown, who challenge Syrus to attack duel after hearing the news of the victory over the Psycho duelist. Both of them have recently pivoted to the style of deck and are compelled to defend its honour, so to speak. Brown is a really funny character, serving as the comic relief of the group, and is essentially the Bastion of his Obelisk Blue friend circle, with all of his friends routinely forgetting his existence and still believes he's stuck in the other dimension. As funny as they may be, both Dante and Brown are just straight up liars, with neither of them using a Psycho deck of any sorts, and instead using their respective attribute decks that they sported when they were still members of the 6 attributes, just with a Jinzo returner thrown in. Is one monster really enough to call your deck another style? Dante's deck profile revolves around the fire attribute, using monsters with various effects to burn us for damage. His ace monster being Festalos the Fire Monarch, a 2400 1 tribute monster that will pitch a card from our hand, and if it's a monster it will burn us for the level of the card times 100. Of course, he's running UFO Turtle to turbo into his other monsters, as well as keeping someone on board as the tribute for his Monarch. I mentioned Jinzo Returner earlier, and its inclusion is just straight doo-doo. It's a 600 point level 3 dark monster that can special summon Jinzo for a turn when it's sent to the graveyard. But Jinzo's great, FishyChippy, why are you slandering? Well, apart from it only surviving for one turn, Dante doesn't play any copies of Jinzo, so why is this even here? As for his spell traps, he's playing all of the staples you'd expect at this point, along with a few interesting yet powerful inclusions. Ectoplasma is a reciprocal effect continuous spell, which forces the player to sack off one monster in the end phase and the opponent loses life points equal to half of the chosen monster's attack stat. This is a mandatory effect, by the way, and in a burn deck where he's going to be dealing damage by all means, Ectoplasma will ensure we won't be able to expand our board presence enough to defend ourselves effectively. Shooting Star Bow Seal is an equip that makes the equipped monster lose 1000 attack points, but is able to swing in for direct damage. Combine this with his Wall of Revealing Light or Gravity Bind, it gives Dante the option to simply lock us down and chip away at our life total without us being able to respond. He runs 3 copies of Robin Goblin, cause of course he does, a card that pitches something from our hand if he's able to deal direct damage. The worst case scenario is that if he's able to use Seal alongside these 3 copies, he could deal a serious dent to our hand. We'll be forced to set cards at that point and potentially run right into a heavy storm. Spiritual Fire Arc Kurenai inflicts burn damage equal to the fire monster's attacks that is tributed for this effect. An easy way to hit us for 2400 by targeting their own Monarch, for example. The Jinzo Returners finally make sense, as to top all of this off, he's playing 1 copy of Crush Card Virus, a monstrous trap card that destroys all 1500 attack or above monsters on our field the moment it's activated, and from the hand for the next 3 turns. All at the cost of tributing 1 dark monster with 1000 attack points or less. With all of the control cards he's playing alongside the burn, if he's actually able to resolve this, it could spell the end for us very quickly. Brown, to his credit, is at least actually playing some sort of a Psycho style deck by enhancing the skeleton of his dark attribute deck. Is that why his friends always forget his existence? Because they can't see him in the shadows or something? His deck overall has a far more aggressive strategy, focusing on inflicting as much damage as quickly as possible, while still limiting the plays we're able to make in response. 2 copies of Armageddon Knight allows him to thin the deck of certain darks that he can then turbo back into with Monster Reborn. 2 copies of Cyber Ogre and Miss Archfiend respectively, both monsters with over 2000 points that can be normal summoned without tribute and can put the pressure on us extremely quickly if we aren't careful. 2 Chaos the Shadow Monarchs, one of the stronger monarchs mind you, that can banish any card on tribute and can even hit us for 1000 points of burn if the card he banishes from our side of the field happens to be a dark monster itself. He actually plays Jinzo, and at 3 copies I might add, alongside its upgraded form, Jinzo Lord, which has the same effect, but can also inflict burn damage by destroying all face-up cards on the field. Spirit Reaper and Pretend the Dark Clown are his crush card targets. The latter he can actually bring back by utilising the 2 copies of Mass Darkness in the deck. He's virtually playing crush card at 3, 4 in total if you count Dante's as well. The staples aside, Brown is running 2 copies of Soul Exchange, which allows him to tribute one of our monsters for his own, at the cost of losing the battle phase. But when his deck is comprised of so many powerful 1 tribute monsters, he can essentially get them online for free. Fiend Sanctuary is here at 2 copies as well. The tokens will redirect any battle damage they end up taking back to us, but they have to pay 1000 points per turn to keep the token on the field. With how filled to the brim his deck is with 6-star monsters, I don't think the cost will really get to a point where it becomes a downside. Dark Spirit Art Greed is essentially a pot of greed for the Dark attribute. It can tribute a dark monster he controls to draw 2 cards, but we can negate this by revealing a spell card from our hand, so it's not too bad I guess. Metal Reflect Slime is a 3k defender when the need arises, and to round this off, Brown also plays 2 copies of Deck Devastation Virus. DDV is basically Crush card but in reverse. You sacrifice a dark attribute monster with over 2000 attack this time, and it applies the same effect as Crush card only to monsters with 1500 points or less. If they end up getting both of these off in the duel, they will pretty much have rendered any plays available to us completely useless. The decks complement each other really well, so I don't think Syrus is going to be able to get us out of this jam this time. Syrus' opening hand consists of 2 copies of Truckroid, Vehicleroid Construction Zone, Emergency Provisions, and a Premature Burial, drawing Stealthroid for turn. He sets the Truckroid and the Emergency Provisions. Dante summons UFO Turtle in attack position and attacks into the Truckroid, taking 600 points of damage as a result of the battle. He sets 2 cards and ends the turn. Our opening hand consists of Monster Reborn, King's Knight, Magician's Valkyria, Beta the Magnet Warrior, and Ancient Rules, drawing Queen's Knight for turn. We summon Beta in attack and enter the battle phase. Beta destroys UFO Turtle, reviving a 2nd copy in its place, and they take the following 300 points of damage. Brown's turn was pretty humble, setting a monster and 2 back rows. He also put UFO Turtle into defense, calling it quits. Syrus draws Drillroid, summoning it to the field. Switching Truckroid into attack, Drillroid successfully attacks it into the UFO Turtle, destroying it via its effect, preventing UFO Turtle from recruiting another monster to the board. Beta swings over the set monster, allowing Truckroid to attack them directly, inflicting 1000 points of damage. Brown and Dante now have 6100 points remaining, and Syrus ends his turn. Dante banishes a monster from the grave in order to special summon Inferno in attack position. Inferno attacks and destroys Truckroid, dealing the first bit of damage for their side in the duel. Inferno's effect activates and resolves, inflicting a further 1500 points of damage if it's successful in destroying a monster. He sets another monster and ends the turn. We draw Mystical Space Typhoon for turn, activating it to destroy the furthest left back row, which turns out to be Dark Mirror Force. We summon Queen's Knight in attack position, destroying the set monster with the effect of Drillroid. A good thing too, as it ends up being another UFO Turtle. Queen's Knight destroys Inferno, inflicting 400 points of damage, clearing the way for Beta to deal a further 1700 points of direct damage, ending the turn. Brown sets a humble T-set and passes. In the end phase, he activates Crush Card Virus, tributing the face-down monster as cost and nuking our field and hand of any 1500 point or higher monsters for the next 3 turns. This wipes away all the card advantage we had built up until this point. Even in the GX era, Kuiper is here to haunt a Thames arse. Syrus draws Monster Reborn and quickly makes use of it, reviving Beta the Magnet Warrior, chaining Emergency Provisions like he did before for some extra life points. He then summons Stealthroid and activates Premature Burial, paying 800 points to special summon Drillroid from the graveyard. Entering the battle phase, he attacks directly with Beta, and Brown counters with the monster trap, Metal Reflect Slime. Beta is forced to cancel the battle, and Syrus attempts to swing over Metal Reflect Slime through Drillroid's effect. Brown responds with the set, Mystical Space Typhoon, targeting Premature Burial, which removes Drillroid from the field and forces the end of the turn. Dante sets a monster and ends his turn. We draw King's Knight, and it's immediately destroyed because of Crush card. We use Monster Reborn to once again revive Drillroid from the grave. We were able to finally swing over Metal Reflect Slime with the effect of Drillroid, and Beta the Magnet Warrior destroys their final set monster, allowing Stealthroid to deal 1200 points of damage, leaving them with a total of 2800 to spare. Because Stealthroid was able to inflict damage, we were able to target one of their set cards and destroy it. The card destroyed turns out to be Deck Devastation Virus, the sister card to the ongoing Crush Card Virus, which is a huge hit considering the circumstances. Brown sets another Humble T-set and ends his turn. Syrus draws Truckroid, entering the battle phase, destroying the set Petting the Dark Clown with Drillroid. Pettin's Recruiter effect still activates this time around, as its card description states when it hits the graveyard, not when it's destroyed by battle. This allows Brown to special summon a second copy in defense position. Beta destroys the second, bringing out the third to the field, and Stealth Ride is incapable of destroying it as their attack and defense points are the same. Syrus switches Stealth Ride to defense, setting Truck Ride before ending his turn, the residual effects of the Crush card finally expiring upon the end phase. Dante's AI, recognizing that Pettin's attack is higher than Stealth Ride's 0 defense, switches it into attack, swinging over Stealth Ride. He then sets a monster and passes his turn. We draw another copy of Beta the Magnet Warrior, summoning it to the field. We attack the set monster with Drill Ride, sending it to the grave prior to damage calculation. Beta destroys Pettin the Dark Cloud, inflicting 1200 points of damage. Beta tries to deal the final blow, only to be countered with yet another Metal Reflex Slime. Brown sets a monster and ends his turn. Syrus draws into Limiter Removal and summons Truck Ride, entering the battle phase. Drill Ride swings over Metal Reflex Slime through its effects. Syrus then plays Limiter Removal, doubling the attack of the 2 Truck Rides for the turn. This had me worried, as they will be destroyed at the end of the turn if he's not able to finish the duel here. But in this case, it doesn't really matter, as the final set monster ends up being an Armageddon Knight, and that ends the duel. The Crush Card virus shenanigans aside, I'm actually shocked that we were able to handle them so easily. I guess that's just the luck of the cards sometimes. Syrus teaches the former deckmasters about the importance of trusting their deck, and not switching up in favour of a particular style of dueling. Celia appears to scold Dante for his betrayal, Brown catching a fiery stray in the process. I do like this running gag with Brown being treated like Bastion in his own friend group. It's just more tasteful when it isn't a once pivotal character being treated like utter trash. The dawn of the graduation duel has now arrived. It's time for everything that Syrus has learned to come to fruition. We stand in opposition of our rival team, Jaden Yuki and Zane Trusdale, the 2 duelists Syrus has looked up to and has been chasing ever since his arrival at Duel Academy, standing in front of them as equals this time in the most important duel of the school year. Now, despite their decks lacking the synergy that Dante's and Brown's had, neither Zane or Jaden will go down easy, sporting their strongest legal decks in the game. Jaden has mostly gone back to basics and has stripped away all of his elemental heroes to strictly his light monsters and Stratos. His overall package is designed to get Neos on board as fast and as consistently as possible, running 3 copies. 3 copies of Neos Alias as well, a level 4 beta that is considered to be Neos when it's on the field and in the graveyard, which is useful for further fusion plays. Prisma can change its name to any fusion material listed on a fusion card to also turbo out more fusions, and it's pretty strong overall, sitting at a hefty 1700 attack points. Stratos can quickly search for any elemental hero that he needs, and also pop a spell if he already has one on the field, so it's great utility overall. He is of course playing the only good Neos card in Neospatian Grand Mole, that can bounce itself and any monster it battles to hand before damage calculation, so this is an easy out to our Obelisk. To top off his monsters, Jaden of course is playing Morphing Jar for the draw power and 3 copies of Honest, a very powerful hand trap that can increase the attack points of a light attribute monster by the amount of the attacking monster during damage calculation. Jaden's entire deck is light monsters, and by running 3 of these, he's guaranteed to at least draw into this card somewhat consistently, and essentially having the ability to out anything we have to attack with. This also synergizes with Zane's deck as well, as he's abandoned his Underworld deck to hop back on the Insanity, which is the original Cyber Dragon cards. Jaden of course plays all the staple spells and traps, and the rest of them are comprised of various revival cards that can bring Neos back from the grave, or Oversoul, Birthright, Skyscraper 2 can all bring back an elemental hero or a vanilla monster to the field. So even if he can hit over Neos, Jaden has the means of easily giving it some staying power. Ancient Rules allows him to turbo it out from the hand as well. Wrath of Neos has a board wipe effect by shuffling Neos from the field back to the deck. This also synergizes with Neos Alias as well, thanks to its effect, so this is very likely to happen at any time. Our Wretch's Justice is a better MST for the hero's archetype, allowing him to destroy back row equal to the number of heroes he has on the field at that time. 1 for 2s or even 3s are very common here, and he runs 2 of these to boot. Lightning Vortex is essentially Raigeki with a cost. There's no 2 ways about it, this deck is extremely capable. As stated, Zane himself has gone back to his roots with a deck centered around his original Cyber Dragon cards. An aggressive 40 card deck designed to turbo out Cyber Dragon's infamous fusions and swing in for the OTK. He runs 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. It's a free summon essentially if we have monsters on the board when they don't. 3 copies of Protoss Hydra. This card is also considered to be Cyber Dragon when on the field. So whilst it's weak, this will be used to turbo into the fusions that require Hydra as a material. Morphing Jar yet again for the draw power. 3 copies of Shining Angel, that's a recruiter that can get Zane into Protoss Hydra or the Light Hex fusion. A monster that can serve as a substitute for a specific fusion material. And as for the spell traps, Brain Control can give them one of our monsters to clear out the board, Dimension Fusion to bring back fusion materials that were banished, which makes sense given his fusion heavy deck. Evolution Burst allows him to destroy 1 card on the field if Hydra is currently on his side of the field, but it can initiate an attack the turn this card is used, so I guess that's okay. Limiter Removal and Megamorph can both double the attack of his monsters under various conditions. Limiter Removal of course doubles the attack of all machine type monsters and then they're destroyed in the end phase. But realistically, if he's going to use this, it's when he has game on board to begin with. Megamorph doubles the attack points of a monster that is equipped to it as long as he has less life points than we do upon activation. This card in particular does have some form of extended utility, as if he uses it when they have more life points but equip it to one of our monsters instead, Megamorph will take their life points into consideration even if it's equipped to one of our monsters, and we end up dealing with the nasty side effect of our monster losing half of his attack points. Nobleman across it can banish 1 set monster on our side of the field, getting around flip effects and leading to an easy OTK. 2 copies of Future Fusions gets his fusions online and fills the grave with materials. He can then use those materials immediately with Overlord Fusion to turbo into Chimeritek Overdragon. Power Bond is essentially polymerization with an attack doubling effect, and aside from all the staple traps, Zane is running 2 copies of DNA Surgery. Now for Zane's fusion, he's packing all of the Hydras. Cyber End, Cyber Twin, Chimeritek Overdragon and Chimeritek Fortress Dragon. They're all scary in their own right, but the only 2 worth focusing on are Cyber Twin and Fortress Dragon. Cyber Twin Dragon is just better than Cyber End in general, requiring far less resources to get on board, and it has the ability to attack twice per turn. Pair this with Power Bond and it sits at 5600 attack points, more than enough to OTK. Even more so if Limiter Removal or Megamorph is involved as well. Fortress Dragon is scary for 3 main reasons: its summoning requirements, DNA Surgery, and Syrus' own deck. Chimeritek Fortress Dragon can be contact fused from the extra deck as long as he has 1 copy of Cyber Dragon on board, and can fuse it with machine type monsters from either player's field to the graveyard. Yes, you heard that right, either player's field. DNA Surgery synergizes with this extremely well, as he can declare the type of all monsters on the field to be machine, giving him easy access to Fortress Dragon by clearing our board when he uses them as material. Without that though, Zane still has constant access to this fusion in particular because of the archetypes Syrus himself plays in Theocoroids, all of which are machine types themselves. There is no getting around it. This matchup is absolutely nasty, and it's clear both Jaden and Zane are throwing everything they can at Syrus, so without any more delay, let's do this. We end up winning the rock paper scissors matchup and we choose to go first. I want to at least put up a suitable wall just in case Zane opens up with the God Hand or something. Syrus' opening hand consists of Stealth Roid, Emergency Provisions, Kite Roid, Truck Roid and Limiter Removal. Drawing Submarine Roid. He sets Truck Roid alongside the 2 spell cards and ends his turn. Zane special summons Hydra in attack position, normal summoning the fusion material substitute, the Light Hex Fusion. He uses its effect, sending itself and Cyber Dragon to the grave to contact fusion Cyber Twin Dragon. This isn't going well already. Zane destroys Truck Roid and attempts to deal direct damage, but Syrus pitches Kite Roid from his hand, using the effect to negate the attack, so Zane sets a back row ending his turn. Our opening hand consists of Monster Reborn, King's Knight, Brain Control, Summon Skull, and Mystical Space Typhoon, drawing another King's Knight for turn. We destroy Zane's back row with the MST, and wait, have we just won? There's no way. We play Brain Control, taking control of Cyber Twin Dragon for the duration of the turn at the cost of 800 life points. Playing Monster Reborn, we can revive the Cyber Dragon in his graveyard to our side of the field. Summoning King's Knight is all that is left to reach the attack points required to OTK Zane using his own monsters, ending the graduation duel before Jaden even gets a chance to take a turn. Heart of the cards, baby. I never expected this deck being capable of an OTK, never mind against the pair that we were up against. I guess Zane wants to learn the ways of a protagonist top decking game, as he's our next partner as we reach the halfway point of the challenge. Season 4 of the anime robs Zane of the closure he could have had. He loses his life in the other dimension, having dueled his best duel against a Yubel possessed Jesse. He then somehow is revived and ends up on the beaches of Duel Academy, wheelchair bound, as the underworld deck he had been using for the last 2 years has done major damage to his heart, damage that they misattributed to the shot caller duels. This leads into the story arc of Syrus taking on that psycho duelist in Satan's players, but Zane himself really doesn't get to do much at all. In Tag Force 3 though, that potential closure is finally realised. Zane is fully abled here, and his entire story is him reflecting on the mistakes of his past, recognising where he fell astray during his reign in the Pro League, and slowly but surely coming to terms with those mistakes, realising that himself and his deck still has the potential to develop even further. Overall, it ties up all the loose strings left by the anime quite nicely, and gives Zane a new path to pursue whilst giving us actual insight to how he himself used his prior actions after he left Duel Academy as a student. Zane uses a somewhat aggressive dragon deck in order to make the underworld cards somewhat playable. We will match his freak by pivoting back to Dark Magic Turbo ourselves. Our journey takes us to the gates of the Academy, Zane lamenting his first return back to the Academy upon his reign of the Pro League. The weird localization of the flashback aside, Syrus insists on calling his brother by his full government name, several times I might add. We have to assist Zane in the shot color duel, this time in Tag Force format against Ra Yellow Syrus and Jaden Yuki. Ra Yellow Syrus' deck is just a weaker variant of his base deck in this game. He's took out the utility Velcroids such as Kiteroid in favour of the more pathetic bodies with rather useless effects. He still has the mainstays that we know and love, a playset of Drillroids, Steamroids, and Submarine Roids for direct damage. Gyroid can survive a battle once per turn, and he runs 3 of those to stall. His spell traps remain consistent with the staples you'd expect, with the few new additions being Super Summon Blaster, that burns the opponent for 300 damage every time a machine type monster is special summoned. This could be useful given both Syrus and Zane play a decent package of machine type monsters, and Wonder Garage that can special summon a level 4 Roid monster once it's destroyed. As for Jaden, he's not playing Neo surprisingly, instead opting for the elemental hero monsters that you don't actually see in the anime, as these were the cards that Jaden Yuki in the manga continuity played. You have the duo in Card Blocker and Trooper, 2 monsters that can mill cards from Jaden's deck to the graveyard to buff their defense and attack stats respectively. Miracle Flipper can banish 1 card from our graveyard once per turn. A pain considering Zane's strategy is to use the grave as a resource for his fusion and beatdown plays. Dandelion of course summons tokens to the field whenever it hits the grave. Used solely as stall here as Jaden does not play synchros, thank god for that. Stratos is here to search for the other heroes, and is just a really good card on its own. The fiery hot duo of Elemental Hero Heat and Heat Lady both have a positive effect based on how many heroes Jaden currently has on the field. Heat gains 200 points per every one, and Lady Heat burns us for 200 damage per hero on board. Elemental Hero Ocean is a really good utility card to funnel resources from the grave, and can even bounce back a hero from the field back to the hand. Woodsman is essentially a weaker King of the Swamp, as it allows Jaden to grab a polymerization for either the deck or the graveyard every standby phase. With that said, he's still running King of the Swamp because it's just too good not to include in a fusion package. Necro Gardener can negate 1 attack by removing it from the graveyard, so it could help him out in a pinch. And last but certainly not least, he's actually committing to the Wing Karibo here. Not just the basic form either, but his upgrades in level 9 and level 10. I had no idea level 9 even existed prior to the video, but I think I prefer it over level 10. His spell and trap lineup is the same as ever, expanding it with Berserker Crush, a quick play spell that gives a Wing Karibo the same stats as the monster Jaden chooses to banish, Transcendent Wings to turbo into level 10, and the Flute of Summoning Karibo in order to turbo into Wing Karibo directly. He also plays 3 copies of Hero Signal to keep bodies on the board whenever we try to advance the game state. The deck power seems similar to our own with how jank they appear to be, so this should be an even matchup, which I think means we should try to go first here. Zane's opening hand consists of Cyber Dark Horn, Giant Trunade, Power Wall, Gould Sarcophagus and Power Bond, drawing Cyber Dark Edge for turn. He plays Gould Sarc, banishing Future Fusion until the second standby phase, where he can then add it to his hand. He sets Power Wall and ends the turn. Syrus summons Drillroid and attacks directly. but Zane responds with Powerball and uses its effect to reduce the damage taken by 100 points for every card he mills from the deck to the graveyard. He mills 16 cards, nullifying the damage completely. Syrus sets a back row, ending the turn. Our opening hand consists of Old Vindictive Magician, Heavy Storm, Mirror Force, Magician's Valkyria and Premature Burial, drawing Magical Dimension. We activate Heavy Storm, which pops the Mirror Force, so it ends up being a good move even if we waste such a powerful spell on a 1-for-1. We then use Premature Burial to revive Satan's Cyber Dragon milled from the effects of Powerwall. We set the Mirror Force and summon Magician's Valkyria in attack position. Cyber Dragon attacks Drill Rod, resulting in its destruction, and Syrus takes the total of 2100 points of damage from the battle and the direct attack. Jaden activates King of the Swamps effect to discard it and add 1 copy of Polarization to his hand from the deck. He then plays Rotor to add Stratos from the deck to the hand, summoning it and using its effect to search Elemental Hero Woodsman to hand. Our Righteous Justice is used to destroy the Premature Burial, sending Cyber Dragon back to the graveyard. Stratos attempts to swing over Magician's Valkyria and we respond with Mirror Force, clearing the field. Jaden sets 1 back row and ends his turn. Zane draws and Future Fusion resolves, adding itself to the hand. He then plays it, milling 5 dragons, the fusion requirement for 5-headed dragon, to the graveyard. A 5000 attack behemoth that will be summoned to our field if Future Fusion survives for the next 2 turns. Zane summons Cyber Dark Edge from hand and uses its effect to equip 1 1500 attack or below dragon monster from the grave to it in order to boost its own attack points. He then uses Giant Trunade for some reason, sending all spell and trap cards on the field back to the hand, including our Future Fusion. Since Twin Dragon Behemoth is treated as a spell trap when equipped to Edge, it also returns to hand. Zane attacks directly with both monsters, inflicting 2400 points of direct damage, setting the Declaration of Rebirth trap and ending his turn. During Syrus' draw phase, he activates Declaration of Rebirth, turning all monsters on the field and in the graveyard to a dragon type. Syrus plays Premature Burial to revive Stratos. Activating Fissure destroys the weakest monster on our side of the field, which happens to be Cyber Dark Edge at the time, and summons Gyroid in attack position. Stratos swings over Magician Valkyria and deals 200 points of damage. Gyroid attacks us directly, inflicting 1000 points of direct damage. We draw Dark Magic Curtain, activating it to special summon Dark Magician from the deck, which leaves us with a measly 3000 life points. We then set Old Vindictive Magician, and like an idiot, attacking the Gyroid, favouring the damage, knowing full well Gyroid will survive the battle as it can prevent its destruction once per turn. This ends up being a misplay that almost costs us the duel, as Jaden tributes both Gyroid and Stratos to advance summon Winkaribo level 9. This Crimson Puffball has the lucrative effect of boosting its attack stat by 500 for every spell card in our graveyard. Since we currently had 10 spells in the grave, this thing stood before us with a mighty 5000 points attack stat. Winkaribo swings over the Dark Magician, inflicting a massive 2500 points of damage, a blow I could have prevented if I ran into the Stratos instead. Jaden sets a back row and ends his turn. Zane draws Sangan and flips the Old Vindictive Magician set in the previous turn. Its effect destroys 1 monster upon being flipped, sending Winkaribo level 9 to the grave without a shot being fired. With the summon of Twin-Headed Behemoth, Zane deals the remaining points of damage to Jaden, winning the duel. I must have forgot just how emo Zane in Season 2 used to be. With the conclusion of the flashback, Zane recognises that Syrus has become the duelist that treats others with respect just as he once did, that being good enough for him, as he's now determined to duel by his own terms. With memories of their hard-fought victories deepening their bond, the duo take a lovely romantic stroll on the beach, being interrupted by a group of students that could not believe their eyes on what they were seeing. Seeking to keep up appearances, Atem and Zane agree to duel them in return of them staying quiet when it comes to extracurricular activities of frolicking by the ocean. Jokes aside, Zane's story tends to play the OST that is reserved for tense and emotional moments in the game. The events in this duel though are rather wholesome in comparison, so it's just bizarre watching it back. Both Simon and Anka are rather infamous in the Tag Force lineup of games, as both of these NPCs have consistently used decks that are both reminiscent of the meta surrounding the time period, or just using a competently made deck in general with a tendency to top deck the out more often than not. You'd honestly start to think they're cheating after you push either of them into a corner, only for them to draw exactly what they needed on their last turn. Simon himself is simply playing a good stuff deck. Anything that was both legal and good in 09, he's playing it. He's got all the classics: Assailant, Warrior Lady, Morbius, Demok, Exiled Force, Old Vindictive, Sangan, Treeborn, Spirit Reaper, Vampire Lord. It just keeps going on and on. His spell traps consist of all the staples, including even more power with the inclusions of Scapegoat for the stall, Smashing Ground to pop our monsters, Book of Moon to protect his monsters, and Crush Card Virus, which he has more than enough targets to pair it with. Even a bad hand for this guy is damn near the same as us drawing our best possible hand. My goodness. Anchor herself isn't playing meta, thank god, but her warrior deck is just as strong and is very well made in general. She's of course on the 3 copies of Marauding Captain, not only for the potential lockdown, but it can also special summon a level 4 or below monster from the hand on normal summon. She can combo this with her 3 copies of Command Knight, a 1600 attack point warrior monster that gives all warrior monsters on the field 400 points for every warrior monster she controls, including itself. We also can't target any other monsters for battle if it's on the field. Warrior Lady is here for the banish. 3 copies of Exiled Force, which is a free 1-for-1 on normal summon, and she can turbo into it as well, which isn't good. And of course, she's on multiple recruiters as well in both Mystic Tomato and UFO Turtle. Her spell and traps contain the power 5, but Anchor is also running multiple copies of Creature Swap that will help her take control of powerful monsters on our side of the field when she's in a pinch. United We Stand is a powerful equip spell from this era that gives the equipped monster 800 points for every monster they currently have on the field. Given that she'll have the ability to swarm the field pretty quickly thanks to the effects of Marauding Captain, this is going to be a prominent threat throughout this duel. Mirror Force is of course self-explanatory, but she's also running a playset of Royal Decree. This is interesting as whilst this is a powerful trap that's essentially Jinzo, shutting off all other trap cards on the field, she's also shutting off her partner's offensive traps in Crush Card Virus if she draws into this, and with her running it at 3 copies, this situation is very likely to come up. Royal Decree could generally end up helping us far more than it does them, but we'll just have to see. Zane's opening hand consists of Cyberdark Impact, Power Bond, Fusion Guard, Mirror Force, and Cyberdark Edge, drawing Mass Dragon. He sets the Mass Dragon alongside Fusion Guard and Mirror Force. Simon mirrors the move, setting a monster and 2 back row. Our opening hand consists of Magical Dimension, Skilled Dark Magician, Old Vindictive Magician, the Tricky and Dark Magic Curtain, drawing Brain Control. We summon Skilled Dark Magician in attack position and attack the set monster. Simon responds with activating Magic Cylinder. We have the opportunity to do the funniest thing imaginable here, which we do. In response, we chain Magical Dimension, with the plan of removing Skilled Dark Magician for the Tricky, negating Cylinder and destroying his face down in the process. Sadly, Simon counters this by chaining Sakuretsu Armor, which destroys the Skilled Dark Magician. Magical Dimension still resolves though, allowing us to tribute Mass Dragon set by Zane for the Tricky in our hand, and we pop the set monster. It's a good thing we did as it turned out to be Night Assailant, a monster that destroys one of ours whenever it's flips face up. We deal 2000 points of direct damage to Simon, ending the turn. Anchor draws and plays Reinforcement of the Army such an Exiled Force, which she uses to pop our Tricky before setting an additional 2 back row. Zane draws Mystical Space Typhoon and opts not to use it, instead summoning Cyberdark Edge in attack position. Edge's effect equips Mass Dragon to itself, boosting its attack power, and he goes for a direct attack. Anchor responds by her own MST, destroying the equipped Mass Dragon in the back row, lowering Edge's attack back to 800, which they take the subsequent amount of damage. I can't be too mad at Zane here for not committing with the MST, now with the knowledge it had a 50-50 shot of being a whiff. Recognising that the other face down isn't an immediate threat, he sets the MST, ending the turn. Simon sets a monster and passes. We draw Polymerization and immediately activate the MST, revealing the Book of Moon. It was more curiosity that forced the move, but it's a good hit regardless. We activate Dark Magic Curtain, special summoning Dark Magician for half of our life points, setting the Old Vindictive Magician alongside Brain Control, initiating the battle phase. Dark Magician swings over the set monster successfully, which happens to be Hand of Nephis, and Cyber Dark Edge deals an additional 800 points of direct damage. Anchor summons another copy of Exile Force and showcases the flawed logic of the AI. In certain situations, they will prioritise hitting over a weaker monster rather than using the effect to get rid of a bigger threat. Since she recognises that Exiled Force has more attack points than our Edge, she attacks into it, running face first into Mirror Force and losing the easy chance of nuking Dark Magician off the board. Hey look, as long as they misplay, I ain't complaining. Anchor sets a humble back row, ending her turn. Zane draws Power Wall, entering the battle phase and attempts to swing with Dark Magician. Anchor responds with enemy controller, switching the position of Dark Magician into defense, ending the attack. Cyber Dark Edge swings in for an additional 800 points of damage. That 5-turn clock is looking mighty fine right now. Zane ends his turn by setting Power Wall. The only thing Simon can muster is a set monster ending the turn. I think popping the Night Assailant really did a number on him. We draw into skilled Dark Magician, summoning it in attack position. With game in our sights, we flip the Unpredictive we had set for ages now, using the effect to pop Simon's face down monster. It turns out to be Sangun, and the effect resolves adding Spirit Reaper to Simon's hand. A pretty annoying card if he's able to get it off, but it doesn't matter. With no Karibo in hand, we swing in for game. I did not expect both of them to brick like that. That wasn't in the script, but we take those. After styling on those fuels, they apologise and ask for both of our autograph. It's not every day that you have the King of Games and Hellkaiser stood in front of you, you know? The next day, Zane interrupts our morning coffee back at the Red Dome, dragging us all the way to the volcano for yet another internal monologue. His next event is another Season 2 flashback, this time reminiscent to the duel he had against Atticus donning the power of Night Shroud. It's quite nice, Zane even admits that Atticus is his best friend during his spiel. Of course, since this will be a tag duel, Alexis has decided to team up with her brother to help save the kind of other brother she had. I mean, Zane does treat her like a little sister sometimes in the first season. I do like how they give Alexis a role in this though. In the anime, she was pretty much fodder with not much to do, even during her time in the Society of Light. Tag Force once again is making better use of the characters than the show ever did. The funniest part about all this is despite entering his Night Shroud persona, Atticus isn't using his Red Eyes deck at all, instead piloting the Beast Warrior beatdown deck that normal Atticus is known for. His deck as a whole consists of beaters that can be normal summoned to the field, like Gene Wart's Werewolf, a vanilla 2k monster that doesn't need a tribute. Beast King Barbaros is a 3000 attack point monster Anubis used against the Tem in the Pyramid of Light movie. You can normal summon it without tribute, reducing its attack power to 1900, which is still very good mind you. Kieron the Mage can pop one of our back row for the cost of discarding a card, and Enraged Battlelocks does piercing damage, and Indomitable Fighter Lele is a 2300 attack beater that switches to defense position after successfully attacking. Panther Warrior is here as well, and he plays a variety of token cards in Scapegoat and Stray Lambs to navigate his attacking requirements. Pitch Black Warwolf shuts off all of our traps in the battle phase, and Manticore of Darkness can keep reviving itself as long as he discards a Beast Warrior. His deck is exclusively Dark type, so there's no way that he isn't going to be able to do so. His Iron Blacksmith Kotetsu can search for his Gaia Power Field spell, which makes all of these already beefy Earth monsters even scarier to contend with. Atticus plays a ton of equipped spells that can lead to an OTK in Megamorph, United We Stand, and Wild's Nature Release buffs one Beast Warrior's attack by adding its defense stat with the cost of it being destroyed in the battle phase. It's essentially a weaker limiter removal but for the Beast Warrior type. Gaia Power of course is just a flat increase to all of his Earth monsters. He's on the double Book of Moon and enemy controller to stop our attacks. Alongside Mirror Force and Torrential, he's doubled up on the Royal Decree to shut our traps off if he ever finds himself in a likely position to OTK. It's scary stuff all around. Alexis in contrast pilots a very ritual centric deck. Her game plan is to summon her boss monster Cyber Angel Dakini, a 2700 attacker with multiple effects, ranging from destroying a card on the field, dealing piercing damage, and can even bring cards back to her hand. If she manages to get this on the field, it could spell trouble for us. She does play cards to at least try and turbo into this, such as the 3 copies of both Manju and Senju of the 1000 Hands, allowing her to add either a ritual monster or a ritual spell to their hand from the deck on normal summon. The only saving grace here is that she's playing strictly the ritual spell required, and not the superior generic ritual spell in advanced ritual art, so that at least slows her down to some degree here. But she does have monsters that can help stall out the game in Marshmallow, Swords of Revealing Light, Fissure as spot removal, the heavy hitter spell traps, and like Atticus, she's also doubled up on the Royal Decree, and went even further with 2 copies of Magic Drain to restrict any responses we might have had to their players. I feel like every time I expect a duel to be difficult, we end up sweeping, so for consistency's sake, I'm still going to insist that this will be a tough one. Zane's opening hand consists of Deck Devastation Virus, 2 copies of Mass Dragon, MST, and Power Bond, drawing Nobleman of Crossout for turn. He sets the Mass Dragon alongside DDV and MST ending the turn. Nitro plays his field spell Gaia Power, which gives a straight 500 buff to all Earth attribute monsters. Zane responds with MST, destroying the field spell. Nitro summons Kieran the Mage in attack position, using the effect to destroy Zane's deck Devastation Virus by discarding a spell from hand. The spell he discards ends up being Stray Lambs. Kieran swings over Mass Dragon and the latter's effect resolves, special summoning Explode the Dragon to the field in attack position. Our opening hand consists of Dust Tornado, Dark Magician, Magician's Valkyria, Skilled Dark Magician and Magical Dimension, drawing the Tricky for turn. We summon Magician Valkyria in attack position, activating Magical Dimension from hand using Explode the Dragon as the tribute to special summon our own Dark Magician, alongside popping the Kieran the Mage. We discard Skilled Dark Magician to special summon the Tricky, setting the Dust Tornado as backup, and dealing a combined 6100 points of direct damage before calling it a turn. Alexis plays the continuous spell Valhalla Hall of the Fallen. This essentially allows her to special summon a very tight monster if she doesn't currently have a monster on the field. She opts not to resolve its effect, instead playing Premature Burial to bring back Kieran the Mage at the cost of 800 life points. This forces the use of Dust Tornado when she tries to resolve Kieran's effect for cost. We destroy Premature, sending Kieran back to the graveyard. I wasn't actually going to use it here at all if she didn't try to resolve the effect. She sets a monster and a face down, ending the turn. Zane draws Mirror Force. Not like he needs it at this point, as Nobleman of Crossout banishes their face down monster, leaving them defenseless. If they didn't have the Mirror Force, psych! I guess that Mirror Force will come in handy after all, with Nightstride applying the pressure with Enraged Battle Ox, running right into our own battle trap, wiping their side of the field clean as well. Ending his turn without setting anything else, we break drawing Dark Magician, but it doesn't matter as the monster Zane set has enough attack points to swing for game. Zane reflects about how his fall into the underworld wasn't because of the weakness of his deck, but his weakness as an individual. In Season 3 during the Other Dimension arc, Zane is a lot more like his Season 1 counterpart. It's an indirect change though, we don't really get the opportunity to see him grapple with his mistakes head on like we do here. This is something that they could have explored more in Season 4, well, if they didn't strap him down to that wheelchair that is. The dawn of the graduation duel is upon us once again. Zane is here never beating the allegations. He is hell-bent on ruining this event every year for everyone else by being involved. Our opponents this time around are the double trouble duo of Aster and the CHAZZ. Whilst this pairing makes a lot of sense just by their relationship alone in Season 4, I actually think it holds way more significance than that. Aster and CHAZZ are two duelists that Zane in both the anime and the manga continuity has quite important duels with, so I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if the developers were referencing that with this pairing now. Both Aster and CHAZZ are piloting their O3 decks, which is their strongest legal decks in the format either of them can use. For Aster, he is of course playing the Destiny Heroes, opting for an aggressive Destiny End Dragoon turbo strategy. His game plan is to use his fuel spell Fusion Gate, which is essentially polymerization with staying power, alongside the trap Chain Material, that allows you to use materials for one fusion summon from either your field, hand or deck. So you don't even need to draw into the resources thanks to this, in order to cheese out multiple copies of his boss monster Destiny End Dragoon. He runs both Chain Material and Destiny End Dragoon at 3 by the way, which makes it very possible for him to be able to summon 3 copies of these in one turn, and once that happens we have no chance of winning at all. Not only does End Dragoon have 3000 attack points, it sports an effect that can pop one of our monsters and inflict burn damage equal to half of its attack points. And if we somehow find a way to swing over Dragoon, by banishing a Destiny hero from the grave it can revive itself, and Aster has more than enough materials for targets to use this effect. He plays all the good heroes in Defender, Diamond Dude, Dasher, Plasma and Dogma for the End Dragoon materials. Even Stratos as well, as its effect specifies hero monsters and not strictly elemental heroes. Destiny Draw is essentially Pot of Greed as long as he has a Destiny hero to discard. Gold Sarcophagus can search any card he wants from the deck, and Future Fusion can fill the graveyard with Destiny heroes for Dragoon's revival effect. Crush Card is just too broken and he has more than enough targets to resolve the effect as well. Aster is doing everything in his power to curb stomp us into the ground once and for all. CHAZZ's strongest deck in contrast revolves around his armed dragon cards, wind attribute monsters belonging to the level gimmick of cards, that can replace themselves with beefier versions with more powerful effects once the requirements are met. He's playing recruiters in both Flying Kamari and Masked Dragon to turbo into Armed Dragon level 3. He's playing all of them up to level 10 by the way. He's playing both the spell cards level down and level up. As their name suggests, they can promote or demote his armed dragons to some of their respective versions on resolution. My Body is a Shield keeps his card safe from destruction at the cost of 1500 points, in which he runs 2. 3 copies of Stamping Destruction, which is MST for the dragon type, can pop 1 back row as long as he has a dragon card on their side of the field, and it also burns us for 500 points of damage. Shrink halves the attack points of any monster he chooses, and CHAZZ will use this to keep his armed dragon safe until the next standby phase where they can then level up. The trap Interdimensional Matter Transporter can remove 1 monster on each side of the field until the end phase. This will have the same use cases as Shrink, with him using it to protect his weaker armed dragons by moving it to the banished zone during our turn, ensuring it survives until his next standby phase. Overall, whilst this deck is nowhere near as good as Asta's, it does complement the Pro Duelists because they're both centered around the dragon type. No matter which way you slice it, this is going to be the toughest duel of the run so far. We've been going first in all of these duels, so what's one more, right? Zane's opening hand consists of the Light Hex Fusion, Power Wall, Gold Sarcophagus, Giant Trunade and Cyber Dark Impact, drawing Premature Burial. He plays Gold Sarc, banishing Future Fusion for 2 turns, setting Light Hex Fusion and Power Wall ending the turn. Asta is going all out from the jump as he plays the field spell Fusion Gate, banishing Dogma and another Destiny hero to fusion summon Destiny Endragoon in attack position. Endragoon's effect pops to set Light Hex Fusion. He can't attack on the turn this effect is used though, so he sets a monster and a back row calling it a turn. Our opening hand consists of Skill Dark Magician, Heavy Storm, Magical Dimension, Dark Magician Girl and Light's Force Sword, drawing Dust Tornado. We activate Heavy Storm and Asta in response chains the quick play spell Fires of Doomsday, special summoning 2 tokens to their side of the field. The rest of the spell and traps are destroyed. We then summon Skill Dark Magician, tributing it via the effect of Magical Dimension to special summon Dark Magician Girl and destroying Destiny End Dragoon. Setting both the Dust Tornado and Light's Force Sword, we attempt to swing over the face down defense monster. Destiny End Defender survives the battle and we take 700 points of damage as a result. CHAZZ sets a back row and we respond with Light's Force Sword, banishing 1 card out of his hand. He then sets another back row and in the end phase we activate our Dust Tornado to pop one of the face downs, sending My Body is a Shield to the graveyard. Zane draws Twin-Headed Behemoth, and Defender's effect allows us to draw an additional card, which he pulls MST. Gold Sarcophagus resolves, adding Future Fusion to his hand. Zane activates Premature Burial, reviving our Skill Dark Magician in attack position. He then activates Giant Trunade, bouncing all spell and traps from the field to the hand. As Premature Burial returns to hand and isn't destroyed, Skill Dark Magician remains on our side of the field, gaining a spell counter upon resolution. Zane activates Future Fusion, sending the materials required to the graveyard for the 5-headed dragon. Skilled Magician gains another spell counter upon resolution. He then uses Premature Burial to revive his Chiffonian Emperor Dragon, a 2400 point beatstick Gemini monster. He concludes by summoning Twin-Headed Behemoth in attack position, entering the battle phase. Both tokens are destroyed, and Zane ends his turn by setting the Mystical Space Typhoon. Asta switches another Fusion Gate through the effect of Terraforming, but doesn't commit to it, instead setting the monster and ending the turn. We draw Swords of Revealing Light and Premature Burial through the effect of Defender. We tribute our Skill Dark Magician for its own effect as it now has 3 spell counters, special summoning Dark Magician from the deck. We still can't do anything about the Destiny Hero Defender right now, so we destroy the face down monster instead, ending the turn. CHAZZ activates the effect of Destiny End Dragoon, reviving it from the grave at the cost of banishing another Destiny hero. He then uses its effect to destroy Dark Magician and we take damage equal to the attack points. He can't attack on the turn the effect is used, so he sets another monster and a back row. In the end phase, we trigger our MST to pop their set card, which turns out to be Shrink. Zane draws Deck Devastation Virus Return and Cyber Darkhorn from Defender's effect. Future Fusion resolves, special summoning his boss monster, the 5-headed dragon. He for some reason puts Emperor Dragon and Twin-Headed into defense position, destroying End Dragoon with 5-headed and inflicting 2000 points of damage. Dark Magician swings over and destroys the face down monster. In main phase 2, he uses the effects of Chiffonian Emperor Dragon by normal summoning it from the field, setting Deck Devastation Virus and ending his turn. Light Force Swords finally expires on Asta's next turn and he's unable to bring back Dragoon at this point. Instead, he uses Monster Reborn to revive our Hex Steel Fusion in defense position on the side of the field. We draw Magic Cylinder and in the standby phase activate Zane's Dex Devastation Virus. We tribute Dark Magician Girl, wiping their board clean. We also get to see what's in Asta's hand, containing a Pot of Avarice and Fusion Gates respectively. With no hand traps or back row left, we are free to swing for game with our boss monsters ending the duel. Asta had us on the back ropes for most of this duel, to be fair. We were just really lucky that he wasn't able to get out multiple copies of Destiny Endragoon. Asta blames his defeat on CHAZZ, and I gotta say, he ain't wrong. With Zane's offense complete, we are now free to move on, and to the easiest campaign of the run along with it. You'll never bloody guess who this person is either. Blair Flannigan. Yes, the girl who uses the Maiden in Love deck and has had crushes on both Zane and Jaden. Not only has the most stories in the game clocking in at 4, she's arguably the strongest duelist you can face in all of Type Force 3. We won't be tackling the other 3 campaigns in this challenge specifically, as the scope of this video is focused on the main stories and not the side plots. Definitely in a future run though. She pilots the all-powerful Light Swans, the extremely volatile light-focused archetype that tries to mill itself to the grave as fast as possible, filling the field with monsters like Wolf that could be special summoned if it's hit by the milling effect, which she plays 3 of by the way, in order to get 4 Light Swan monsters with unique names to the graveyard so she can summon the boss monster of this archetype, Judgment Dragon. As I mentioned before, it's a 3k behemoth with a board wiping effect for a measly cost of 1000 life points. That isn't once per turn either, and is still capable of attacking even after using the effect. It's also available at 3 copies in this format, and since Judgment Dragon doesn't banish the Light Swan monsters it needs to be special summoned, if she ends up drawing into multiple of these, your ass is immediately OTK'd. You can't even stop Judgment Dragon either, as its board wiping effect has priority. How is Breaker banned and this is legal at 3? I don't believe she plays Honest. The deck is already broken enough. Imagine if she actually did though. I don't think the deck we're going to be playing is even going to matter here, so I guess we'll try the Egyptian God deck again. Maybe with her aggressive game plan we might get enough bodies on the board to tribute for Obelisk. Blair's entire event line revolves around yet another quest for love. With graduation fast approaching and the realisation that Jaden is about to leave forever, leaving both her and Hasselberry alone in their final year at the academy, she enlists the help of the nameless pharaoh, who undoubtedly pulled many bitches in his time with that golden voice. So she has the greatest chance of stealing Jaden's heart before it's too late. Our adventure takes us to the Obelisk Blue Boys dorm where Syrus, aided by Jesse, are participating in tag duels as a form of therapy. It seems like the light of destruction placed a significant strain on Syrus' physical form. Whilst he's unable to read the future anymore, even when he tries to predict his own, the Arcana Force cards consistently giving the reading of the Traitor card, he's willing to read Blair's own fortune of love in exchange for a duel. Sartorius still uses the Arcana Force cards that he once did, monsters that contain both a positive or negative side effect depending on the result of the coin toss. I swear the game cheats when it comes to these cards, as instead of the standard coin flip animation that it uses for any other effects in the game, the Arcana Force cards do the spinny shit they did in the anime. So whilst I can't prove it, I swear the game uses the ambiguity of this animation to rig the results in his favour. It doesn't help that the game doesn't indicate which direction corresponds to either face of the coin either. Most of the monsters in this archetype aren't really worth going over, aside from maybe 3. Arcana Force Zero the Fool is a 0 attack and defense monster that can't be destroyed by battle. Useful for Sartorius to stall whilst he builds up his board presence when drawing into one of his more beefier monsters. He plays an anime exclusive card added to the game in the Hanged Man, a 2200 attacker with the effects of popping a monster on the field and inflicting burn damage equal to its attack. If this card flips heads, this effect will be inflicted to his monsters instead, but that just simply doesn't happen. Since this deck involves a ton of rigging, luck to function, he's naturally on spell traps that increase the chance of things going his way, like the second coin toss continuous spell card. Self-explanatory really, if he dislikes the initial result of the coin flip, he can redo it and he plays this at 3. This pairs shockingly well with the 2 cups of aces he has in the deck, a 3 pot agreed as long as the coin toss goes his way. The Light Barrier Field spell is a huge addition for the Arcana Force cards, as this allows him to actually choose which effect he wants to use without the need of flipping the coin. The Hanged Man can consistently pop and burn us if this hits the field. He doesn't play 3 copies of this though, surprisingly. Lucky Chance can chain the effects of his monsters to toss another coin, and if he calls it right, he gets to draw another card. Reversal of Fate will invert the positive and negative effects, so if he flips a bad result, he can use this card to turn it to his advantage. And naturally, he's playing all of the power spells and traps at multiple copies when applicable. Jesse is running the vanilla variant of the Crystal Beasts, a really interesting archetype in concept, where the monsters hit the back row when they're destroyed rather than the graveyard. Jesse can then use them as resources for various effects, from advancing his plays, halving all battle damage, and giving certain cards destruction immunity. He can then use those along with the Crystal Beasts in the grave to special summon his boss monster, Rainbow Dragon. Something tells me that we won't be seeing this at all, because of how slow the Crystal Beasts tend to be, and the fact you need 7 of them with different names either on the field or in the graveyard to even get Rainbow Dragon on the board. Rainbow Dragon and even its Dark variant are really useful in making a Rainbow Neos turbo deck, as they both count as the original card, giving you 6 fusion materials essentially. The Crystal Beasts, when placed in the back row, are considered spells as well as monsters, so they are vulnerable to our removal, but I think leaving them in the back row will benefit us way more in the long run. Since this is a tag duel, this in essence makes the Crystal Beasts even slower than they typically are, and if we can get Jesse to clog up the back row by being aggressive from the jump, this will limit what Syrus himself can do quite a bit. So with that out of the way, it's time to duel. You can tell Syrus has truly lost his foresight abilities. Bro would have picked first if he had any inkling into what's about to happen. Blair's opening hand consists of Solar Recharge, Light Swarm Wolf, Giant Trunade, Mirror Force, Glorious Illusion, and draws Light Swarm Graganith for turn. Bloody hell. She uses Solar Recharge and discards Graganith. This is the Light Swan equivalent of Allure of Darkness, allowing her to draw 2 cards from the deck. She also has the top 2 cards milled from her deck upon resolution. She draws 2 copies of Light Swan Raikou, setting one of them alongside Mirror Force and Glorious Illusion. Syrus sets a single back row in response. Our opening hand consists of Dust Tornado, Summon Skull, Ancient Rules, and 2 copies of Magician Valkyria, drawing Jack's Knight. We set the Dust Tornado, special summoning Summon Skull with the effect of Ancient Rules. Syrus responds with Bottomless Trap Hole, banishing the Summon Skull. We still have our normal summon door, so we bring out Magician's Valkyria in attack position and activate Blair's Glorious Illusion, which special summons Dragonith to the field from the graveyard. With an open field, we are free to swing in with both our monsters, dealing the first blood of the duel. In the end phase, both Dragonith's and Glorious Illusion's effects resolves, milling a combined 6 cards from our deck to the graveyard, with one of them being a copy of Obelisk the Tormentor. Jesse activates his field spell Ancient City Rainbow Ruins. He then summons Crystal Beast Topaz Tiger in attack position and swings into Magician's Valkyria. In normal circumstances, they would crash, but Topaz Tiger's effect activates, gaining 400 points whenever it initiates an attack with a monster, forcing the activation of Mirror Force. Topaz Tiger then goes into the back row instead of the graveyard. Yu-Gi-Oh players will never beat the can't read allegations, as I completely whiff our Dust Tornado in the end phase, targeting Ancient City. It's immune from destruction if a Crystal Beast monster is placed in the back row. No excuses, I goofed up. Blair draws Gareth Light Swarm Warrior and interestingly enough flips her Raikou, triggering its effect to pop the Topaz Tiger. Since he still counts as a monster even when in the spell trap zone, Raikou can destroy it here, milling 3 cards from the top of her deck. Graganith gains 300 points for every Light Swarm monster in the graveyard. She only has 2 surprisingly, buffing its stats by 600, which is still more than enough to swing for game, ending the duel. She gets her fortunes told by Syrus, and the mask slips a little bit here as he laments the loss of his power. Another Syrus heal turn perhaps? This doesn't go anywhere though, so I had no idea why it was included outside of the shock factor. I'm just hoping that Blair can carry our sorry ass for the rest of these duels, to be honest. The next day, Blair interrupts Atten's beauty sleep yet again, on this occasion over whispers of a hidden power revolving the lighthouse. According to Icarus, the academy contains 7 wonders, so to speak. Legends that speak of an interesting power that can determine the course of fate itself. It's somewhat similar to the 7 wonders of Twilight Zone if you're ever familiar with Kingdom Hearts 2. The lighthouse is an outlier however, legends foretelling that anyone to confess their love there will ensure that they remain together for all eternity. So naturally, we gotta go there for a test drive to see if it's true. It's there we run into CHAZZ, who lured Alexis here under false pretenses under the guise of studying. Yeah, that euphemism. It's clear CHAZZ wants to test out the legend for himself, and so Blair challenges the pair to a duel, who he and the oblivious Alexis reluctantly accept. For this duel, CHAZZ is piloting a deck combining two of his more infamous strategies together, Ojama Control and the Union Monsters. He plans to make use of the Ojama support cards like Ojama Magic to quickly search into all three of the vanilla Ojama monsters. Ojama Delta Hurricane to board wipe our field if he ever gets all three on the board simultaneously. And the trap card Ojama Trio, summoning 3 tokens to limit our field. These things can't be tributed, and we take 300 burn damage for each one that's destroyed. The problem is, because he doesn't play nearly enough copies of Delta Hurricane or Ojama Trio for the control aspect, and he doesn't play any of the fusions either for that matter, that can further restrict our monster zones, half of his deck just ends up being a break, and actively sabotaging his objectively better strategy in the Union monsters. He's essentially put shit and ice cream together to try and make the shit taste good. Alexis's all-2 deck completely scraps the fairy rituals, opting for a relatively weak warrior deck. She ain't no anchor, that's for sure. She runs some of the better warriors such as Command Knight and Warrior Lady, just not in favourable ratios for her to really take advantage of them. She plays a playset of recruiters in Giant Rat and the Warrior Lady of the Wasteland to search into her other Earth monsters. 2 copies of the Earth X fusion, which can be used as a fusion material to get into her only extra deck monster in Cyber Blader, with the rest of her monsters being those from the anime that serve as the actual material for her fusion. She runs some good stuff like Sangun for searches, Marshmallow to stall as a last resort, reinforcement of the army to add warriors to her hand, and Creature Swap to trade her otherwise weaker monsters for our more powerful ones. She unironically plays more control cards than CHAZZ does, running 3 copies of Ground Collapse, that restricts 2 monster zones on our side of the field per copy. This would actually be more threatening if CHAZZ played the Ojama fusions, but he just simply refuses to. At least her deck is more consistent than CHAZZ's from a deck building philosophy, but who am I kidding? They're both about to get blown away by Judgment Dragon, aren't they? Blair's opening hand consists of Heavy Storm, Raikou, Garoth, Light Swan Celestia, and Wolf, drawing another Celestia. She summons Garoth in attack position and sets the Heavy Storm, ending her turn. CHAZZ plays Magical Mallet, returning 2 cards to his deck so he can redraw another 2. He sets a monster and 2 back rows before activating Swords of Revealing Light, preventing our attacks for 3 turns. Our opening hand consists of Obelisk the Tormentor, Mirror Force, 2 copies of Upstart Goblin and 4-star Ladybug of Doom, drawing the Tricky. We activate the Upstart Goblin, drawing an additional card, giving the opponent a 1,000 more life points. We draw MST. Activating Blair's set Heavy Storm removes the swords and the 2 back row cards. We then discard the 4-star Ladybug to special summon the Tricky in attack position. We set Mirror Force and swing into the set monster with Tricky. Ojama Black is destroyed and we swing in for an additional 1850 points of direct damage, with Garoth ending the battle. In the main phase 2 we set our own MSC, concluding the turn. Alexis destroys both of our set cards with her Heavy Storm, adding Cyber Gymnast to hand through the effect of reinforcement of the army. She summons DD Warrior Lady and swings into the Tricky, using its effect to banish both, though she does take 500 points of damage from the resulting battle. She activates the spell card Ground Collapse, removing 2 of our monster zones, meaning we can only summon a total of 3 monsters before ending her turn. Blair draws Solar Recharge, using its effect to draw another 2 cards, discarding Raikou. She draws the equipped spell Light Swan Saber and Lila. Blair tributes Garoth to advance summon Celestia, activating her effect. Celestia can destroy up to 2 cards on summon as long as the tribute was a fellow Light Swan. This destroys Ground Collapse and removes the restriction placed on our field. She equips Light Swan Saber to Celestia, raising its attack by 700 to 3000 attack points, swinging in for a massive hit of direct damage. All CHAZZ can muster at this point is a Heavy Storm to rid the field of Saber before setting his own back row. We draw King's Knight, immediately summon it to the field. CHAZZ's phase down was nothing more than a bluff and we swing in for game. I'm telling you guys, Blair's deck is OP. CHAZZ quotes by saying that we did all of the work and that's why we won. He must be blind as well as horny, and he walks away in tears, never knowing if the legend of the lighthouse was ever true. I absolutely adore the render they made for him in this scene, by the way. For as arrogant as CHAZZ is in the series, he's definitely the most expressive character of the main cast. With the trial run going extremely well, Blair realises the easiest route to a man's heart is through his stomach. With that in mind, she puts it on herself and attempts to locate Jaden's favourite culinary dish, fish. Hey, that's me! Unfortunately, the weather has been terrible as of late, which has left the academy in a form of fish drought. Knowing the menus for each of the dorms, Blair identifies that it's fish week for the raw yellow students, and thus we confront the dorm's best two duelists in the form of Bastion and Hassleberry for the right to their dinner. Hassleberry is bringing his A game with his O3 deck, a collection of balanced dino monsters with a high attack stat for the levels, or defenders with the effect of influencing the positions of the opponent's monsters. He also uses some utility monsters in the form of Gillosaurus, which can be special summoned from the hand to advance their board state, alongside Hyper Hammerhead, which bounces monsters it battles back to the hand. The stars of the show are his two ace monsters in Superconductor Tyranno and Ultimate Tyranno, two beatsteaks with over 3000 attack points each that can burn us for 1000 damage and attack all monsters on our side of the field respectively. Big Bang Shot and Jurassic World can further increase the attack power of his monsters. The Shallow Grave can revive bodies to the field, which he can then use as tribute fodder for his boss monsters. Trading is his form of Pot of Greed, which he can use by discarding the level 8 or higher monster from the hand, in which he plays plenty. This synergizes with both the Shallow Grave and even Monster Reborn, since he doesn't necessarily need to tribute summon into his bigger monsters. With the power spell and traps making up the rest of the deck, it certainly has the potential to pose quite a threat. Bastion by contrast really isn't taking this duel too seriously, experimenting with his Battery Man deck. Battery Man is an archetype of exclusively light monsters with the ability to OTK by swarming the field with the effects of Battery Charger or Infernal Reckless Summon. This can turbo out 3 copies of Battery Man AA to the field, who gains 1000 points for every other copy of it on the field. At its best, they can have up to 3000 points each. That's 9k of direct damage on an open board. Combine this board state with the spell Short Circuit, which destroys all cards on the opponent's side of the field, and you can see just how quick this strategy can spiral out of control. Fortunately for us, Bastion really isn't piloting a package that can facilitate this classic OTK. He's only playing 2 copies of AA and only 1 copy of Short Circuit, and whilst he does play 3 copies of Battery Charger and multiple copies of Battery Pack, that is a double call of the Haunted for this archetype essentially, the ratios aren't really in his favour to deal as much damage as possible. He does play some good stuff in Saborg the Thunder Monarch and Judgment of Thunder, both cards that can pop a card on our side of the field, but then he has stuff like White Magician Pikeru because he has a crush on it in the anime, rather than something far more useful like a copy of Honest. Bastion does play all the power spell and traps alongside Luminous Spark, a field spell that gives a flat boost to all light attribute monsters on the field. This will unironically also benefit Blair as well because of her deck. And Metal Reflect Slime at 3 copies gives Bastion a reliable defense to stall us long enough to even build an adequate board in the first place. He also plays an anime exclusive monster in Plasma Warrior Eatum. It's a 3000 point attacker that can attack directly by halving its attack stats. This is a brick in most circumstances, as it can't be normal summoned or special summoned unless he tributes 1 level 7 or above Thunder monster. He plays 2 of these at the most, so I'm not sure why this is even in here to begin with. Blair's opening hand consists of Premature Burial, Solar Recharge, MST, Raikou, and her boss monster Judgment Dragon. Oh my god. Drawing Pot of Avarice for turn. She pitches Raikou with the effect of Recharge to draw an additional 2 cards, those being Garoth and Trunade, with the deck being milled for a further 2 cards. One of those cards happens to be Greganith, so she revives it via Premature Burial. For some reason, she wants to waste the Trunade in returning Premature to the hand. I guess to remove the crutch from Greganith, but it still feels like a bit of a waste here, setting the Mystical Space Typhoon. She normal summons Garoth to the field in attack position. In the end phase, Greganith's effect resolves, milling 3 cards from the deck. Garoth's effect then triggers, which forces her to mill an additional 3 cards from the deck whenever cards are sent to the graveyard by another Light Swarm monster's effect. She can then draw an additional card with it being Jane Light Swarm Paladin. Hassleberry normal summons Hyper Hammerhead, equipping it with Big Bang Shot, raising its attack stat to 1900, attempting to swing over Garoth. Blair responds with Mystical Space Typhoon, destroying Big Bang Shot, and Hyper Hammerhead is sent to the graveyard, as the monster equipped with the spell card is also destroyed upon its destruction. He sets one card and ends the turn. Our opening hand consists of Brain Control, Mirror Force, 2 copies of Queen's Knight, and Beta the Magnet Warrior, drawing Ancient Rules. We set the Mirror Force in the back row, summoning Beta in attack position. With a clear field, we attempt to swing in for a combined 6150 points of direct damage, which we are successful in doing so. Dragonif and Garroth's effects triggers milling from our deck, and Obelisk once again falls victim to the graveyard. Bastion hilariously breaks, and so his turn comes to an end with a single back row being set. Blair draws Glorious Illusion for turn, activating Pot of Avarice to return 5 monsters from the deck to the graveyard, for the trade-off of drawing 2 more cards. She picks 4 of our monsters in 2 copies of Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and Obelisk the Tormentor alongside her Raikou. She then activates Premature Burial to special summon Jane from the grave. Instead of swinging in for game, the AI just loves to milk their players to draw out the duel, which can cost them quite a bit. Blair insists of equipping Dragonif with Lightsworn Saber to redundantly increase its attack stat, and Bastion responds with MST destroying Premature Burial and sending Jane back to the graveyard. She finally attempts to swing for game, and I gotta apologise here because Bastion's set card is the Monster Trap in Metal Reflex Time. If she didn't play Saber, we just wouldn't be able to hit over it. Dragonif inflicts piercing damage, and Blair finally ends the game with a direct attack from Garroth. It turns out we did all of this dueling for nothing, as the Rye Yellow Dome also has run out of fish, but Jaden quickly calls everyone to the Red Dome, ecstatic over the feat of catching a huge boatload of them. Blair's plan once again ends in failure, but she's at least glad to see Jaden happy again. With graduation looming near, Blair is on borrowed time if she ever has the hope of confessing her love to Jaden. Ruining a Thames morning coffee yet again, we rendezvous with Jaden at the lighthouse. As it seems like Blair is about to fumble the bag yet again, Atticus shows up all in his Cupid glory and challenges us to a tag duel of love. Atticus became somewhat of a comic relief character upon his return in Season 1, and that pretty much carries over to the Tag Force continuity as well. It's a shame really, as they did a lot to build him up throughout Season 1, with him being the only other person to complete the Gravekeeper's trial aside from Jaden. But they really had no idea what to do with the character after the resolution of the Shadow Riders arc. Both of these guys are using deck profiles that we've already covered. Jaden is using the Neos Turbo deck he tried to use against Syrus in the graduation duel before we OTK'd Zane. And Atticus is using the beatdown deck he piloted during Zane's campaign. Together, I expect both of their decks to synergize quite nicely together. Both are very aggressive and can summon big bodies to the board reliably. Jaden will be quite the nuisance if we let him get into a position where he can continue to recycle Neos over and over again. We get to go first, which is probably the play. The sooner that Blair can start the graveyard, the better really. Blair ditches her opening hand with card destruction, replacing it with Pot of Avarice, Wolf, Garroth, Lumina and Raikou, summoning Garroth to the field in attack position. Jaden opens with Neos Alias in attack position, swinging over Garroth and inflicting 50 points of damage to Blair. He then ends his turn with a face down. Our opening hand consists of Obelisk the Tormentor, Dust Tornado, Magic Cylinder, Ancient Rules and the Tricky, drawing Upstart for turn. Upstart Goblin gives us Swords of Revealing Light, and we discard Obelisk to special summon the Tricky. We set Dust, Cylinder and the Swords, swinging over Neos Alias, dealing our first bit of damage to Jaden. In the standby phase, Atticus plays Jaden's Oversoul to revive Alias in defense position. He then tributes it for his Manticore of Darkness, a level 6 2300 point beat stick. He plays Wild's Nature Release targeting his Manticore, boosting its attack by 1000 points. As a result, it will be destroyed in the end phase. He attempts to swing into Tricky and we respond with the Magic Cylinder we set last turn, negating the attack and inflicting the now 3300 points of damage to the life points. Atticus sets another trap and ends his turn. We in response destroy the set trap with our Dust Tornado, and Manticore leaves the field per the effect of Wild's Nature Release. Manticore of Darkness can annoyingly revive itself from the graveyard as long as Atticus can discard a monster of the required type, which he can, and it returns to the field in attack position. Blair draws Lightsworn Barrier, setting Raikou face down and activating Swords of Revealing Light, preventing any oncoming attacks for 3 turns. Jaden plays Emergency Call, searching Prisma to hand. Summoning Stratos to the field, he searches an additional Prisma, ending his turn. We draw, summon Skull and flip Blair's Raikou targeting Manticore of Darkness. I did this under the suspicion that Jaden doesn't have any Beast Warriors in his hand to revive the thing. Raikou is really annoying in Tag Force 3 specifically, because they fucked up the effect's localization to say destroy this card. So it can gaslight you into misplay if you think this in this equation is referring to Raikou itself, as it asks you this prior to selecting a target. We flip her Light Swarm barrier face up just to get it online, and special summon our Summon Skull through the effects of Ancient Rules. Tricky swings over Stratos and we inflict a hefty 27 points of direct damage, with our 2 spare monsters ending the turn. Atticus can't bring back Manticore of Darkness anymore, so all he can do is set a monster and call it a turn. Blair draws Realm of Light and activates it. She then summons Lumina to the field and triggers its effect. Lumina can revive 1 level 4 Light Swarm from the grave at the cost of discarding a monster from her hand. Wolf is a level 4 monster that can't be normal summoned. You're intended to special summon it through its effects of being milled from the deck. So if you draw into it, it serves as a discard cost more than anything. But you can also special summon it through the effects of Lumina. She special summons the wolf that she just discarded and swings in for game. Blair finally confesses her feelings and Jaden is somewhat receptive to the idea, agreeing to become her partner. With her goal accomplished, Blair pretty much tells the Tem to fuck off as he isn't needed anymore. Is this any way to treat a king? If Blair was the easy mode of the challenge, CHAZZ is perhaps the Dark Souls. CHAZZ throughout checks like Jaden and Zane pilots a variety of different decks. He starts out with Chiffonians, replacing them quite early on in favour of the mighty Union monsters that he gets from Crowler. Kaiba himself used these in the form of the XYZ monsters. Somewhere along the line the Ojamas come into the picture as well. So with a variety of deck philosophies to choose from, which deck do you think CHAZZ opts to pilot for his story? That's right, fucking Ojama. Ojama control to be specific, and not even the good kind either. Just look at this shit, bruv. This deck is utter garbage. In fact, it's worse than garbage. Hell, it might even be worse than ours. His only monsters are the Ojama cards, all of them having 0 attack points by the way. His entire game plan is to limit the opponent's field with Ground Collapse, swarming the remaining of the monster zones with the Ojama tokens that inflict a measly 300 points of damage on destruction. He might even get lucky and fuse into Ojama King or Knight turn 1 to limit 2 to 3 monster zones a pop, but even that isn't a guarantee. We're still on the god shenanigans for this one, as we might actually be able to resolve our Obelisk this time if CHAZZ can get enough bodies on the board for the tribute. I'm highly skeptical of his capacity of doing so, but you never know. The first event breaks out in the Slifer Red Dome. It's food time and CHAZZ starts a fight with Jaden and Syrus, who he accuses of stealing his shrimp when the power went out. Professor Banner is here somehow too. Tag Force just loves these non-canon events where characters that are blatantly dead at this point in the series show up and nobody questions it whatsoever. For this tag duel, Jaden is once again using the manga exclusive cards he used in the flashback duel, backed up with the various Winkaribo monsters and support cards. Slifer Red Cyrus's deck comprises of the monsters he used throughout season 1 of the anime. He's still running the important Roid monsters at 3 to keep the deck somewhat functionable, but this time he has gone even further in making this deck unplayable by getting rid of the playset of Submarine Roid in favour of vanilla Encyclo Roid and the 1900 point Thunder Nyan, which has absolutely no synergy with the rest of the deck and is only here to cement his degeneracy. To facilitate his lack of power bond, since as you might recall, Zane in season 1 said he was unworthy of the card, which made Syrus reluctant to play it, has doubled up on the limiter removals. He's running 3 copies of Earthquake, which will switch our monsters to defense position, in which he can easily swing over with Drillroid, or by popping them with the multiple copies of Shield Crush. Supercharge allows him to draw 2 cards if he targets a Roid monster, and Polymerization is here to facilitate plays into his boss monster, Steam Gyroid. He at least plays all of the staples because otherwise this deck just would not function at all. We are forced to go second, which isn't ideal given CHAZZ's deck is more controlled than anything else. Jaden activates the effects of King of the Swamp, adding Polymerization to hand at the cost of discarding Swamp. He then uses Premature Burial to revive Swamp. Polymerization then fuses it with the Elemental Hero Woodsman in his hand, fusion summoning another one of Jaden's early manga fusions, Elemental Hero Terra Firma. It's the manga version of Electrum essentially. Finally, he sets a monster and a back row. CHAZZ's opening hand consists of Magical Mallet, Card Destruction, Magical Hats for some reason, Swords of Revealing Light, and Ojama Mandala, drawing Torrential Tribute. He plays Magical Mallet, returning Magical Hats and Ojama Mandala to the deck, in order to draw an additional 2 cards. One of those being yet another Magical Hearts and a Symbol of Duty spell card. CHAZZ plays Sword of Revealing Light, setting both the Torrential and Hearts, ending his turn. Syrus instantly gets rid of the swords with MST. He then summons Drillroid in attack position, prompting CHAZZ to respond with Torrential Tribute, wiping the field clean. He ends his turn setting 2 back row. Our opening hand consists of Jack's Knight, 2 copies of Queen's Knight, Dust Tornado and Ancient Rules, drawing Beta the Magnet Warrior. We set the Dust Tornado, summoning Beta in attack position and swinging in for direct damage, not wanting to fully commit with the Jack's Knight just yet. Syrus negates the battle with Magic Cylinder and we take 1700 points of damage for the trouble. Jaden ends his turn without actually doing anything, and we pop one of their 2 face downs with a Dust Tornado in the end phase. CHAZZ draws Order Magic and attempts to swing directly with Beta. Jaden negates the attack by banishing Necrogarner from the graveyard, ending the turn. Syrus sets a monster and activates Swords of Revealing Light. I really wish we still had the Dust Tornado right now. With the conclusion of this turn, I'm going to summarise the next couple of turns in order to keep the pace of this video going. We set the 4-star Ladybug of Doom we drew for turn. Jaden attacks into it with the Elemental Hero Ocean he summoned, destroying it. 4-star Ladybug's effect destroys all level 4 monsters when blipped, taking Ocean along with it. CHAZZ sets the Ojama Green he drew for turn. He then tributes it for the cost of Symbol of Duty, special summoning Syrus's Drillroid in its place. Syrus activates Monster Reborn, bringing back Jaden's Woodman in defense position, setting an additional monster. We draw Summon Skull, special summoning it through the effect of Ancient Rules, setting our Queen's Knight. Sword finally expires at the end of our turn, so CHAZZ can actually attack next time around. On Jaden's turn, he activates Woodman's effect to grab a Polymerization from the graveyard, tributing their 2 set monsters to summon Wing Karibo level 9. This thing is nowhere near as threatening as last time, having only 1500 points compared to the 5k beatstick it became during Zane's campaign. Jaden swings into our face down Queen's Knight and loses 100 life points as a result. CHAZZ draws another copy of Symbol of Duty entering the battle phase. He swings Drillroid into Woodsman, destroying it via its effect. Beta destroys Wing Karibo and Jaden takes another 200 points of damage. He responds with Hero Signal on destruction, special summoning another Woodsman in defense position. Summoned Skull destroys Woodsman and Queen's Knight swings directly for 1500 points of damage. Thanks to Syrus breaking on his following draw, the field is completely open and we swing for game. CHAZZ using a slower control deck probably helps us out here. The only reason Wing Karibo could get so beefy last time was down to Zane milling most of his deck with Powerwall. Jaden and Syrus confessed that they in fact didn't steal the fried shrimp, leaving CHAZZ with a vendetta against a would-be thief, whoever they may be. The shenanigans on the island continue, only this time it's Alexis's dress that has been stolen. CHAZZ obviously must get to the bottom of this in the name of his love, and so we get a nice reunion with Pierre the Gambler. Our next duel is against a fitting but unlikely duo of the Gambler and Sartorius. It's a unique pairing as both rely on chance just on different spectrums, but they are just as annoying as you might expect. Sartorius is still on the Arcana Force, no changes there. The Gambler's entire deck, aside from one vanilla monster and Dice Armadillo, all have a coin flip or a dice roll effect. Whether it's to target and destroy cards on the field, effects that will determine whether or not he'll have to pay a cost to attack or to inflict burn damage in Jirai Gumo and Abe Ushioni respectively. Sun Gambler shares a similar effect to Barrel Dragon, where he flips 3 coins and if all the results go their way, we lose all of our monsters on the board. Pierre is one of the few NPCs with a side deck, believe it or not. I don't know why he has one, as the only card in there is Jinzo Lord, which is useless since he doesn't play Jinzo himself. Dangerous Machine Type 6 and Blind Destruction both have a destruction effect if he gets the right dice roll. Second Coin Toss and Dice Reroll grants them a redo if the results do not go their way. Granted, I don't know how valuable those last 2 are going to be, as I'm quite unlucky at coin flips. My dog Lassie beat me 8 times in a row the other day, so we'll see. CHAZZ's opening hand consists of Ojama Green and Black, Polymerization, Morphing Jar and King of the Swamp, drawing Ojama Yellow for turn. He activates Polymerization fusing the 3 Ojamas in hand to fusion summon Ojama King in defense position. Ojama King restricts 3 of the monster zones per its effect. He then uses King of the Swamps effect, discarding itself to add Polymerization to hand from the deck, setting it alongside Morphing Jar. The Gambler sets 1 monster and 2 back row, passing it over to us. Our opening hand consists of 2 copies of King's Knight, 2 copies of the Tricky and Magician's Valkyria, drawing Fisher. We discard one of the King's Knight for cost to special summon Tricky, normal summoning Magician's Valkyria and setting the Fisher before entering the battle phase. The Tricky successfully swings over the set monster and Valkyria successfully hits through for 1600 points of direct damage. Sartorius starts his shenanigans with second coin toss, using brain control to take our Tricky, which I think is a misplay. I would have taken the 3000 defender in Ojama King personally. Either way, he tributes Tricky to summon Arcana Force, the Hanged Man, in attack position, triggering its effect. It's essentially a coin toss where if he's successful, he can destroy one of our monsters in the end phase. Of course, he gets the positive effects because the game cheats, and he pops the Ojama King, destroying Valkyria in the battle phase. CHAZZ uses the effects of Morphing Jar on his turn to draw an entirely fresh hand, reviving Ojama King with Monster Reborn. He then sets an Ojama Green and a Mystical Space Typhoon. The Gambler sets a monster and then swings into Morphing Jar with Arcana Force, dealing 1500 points of damage. It then pops Ojama King for a second time in the end phase. We draw Monster Reborn for turn and activate Fisher, popping the Hanged Man. We then destroy one of their face cards with MST. Pitching King's Knight, we can summon the Tricky in attack position, reviving our other copy of the Tricky from the graveyard with our Monster Reborn. In the battle phase, we are successful in swinging over the set monster and dealing 2000 points of direct damage with our spare Tricky. No idea why I didn't revive the Hanged Man with Monster Reborn looking back. I think the card effect was just tripping me up a bit. Sartorius activates a rather dangerous spell card in Suit of Sword X. It's a coin flip, and if it lands on heads, all monsters on our side of the board are destroyed. Vice versa if it's tails, but they can still activate it even if they have no monsters to commit. Luck was not on their side this time around as they land on tails both times, thanks to the redo of second coin toss. He ends his turn with a humble tea set. CHAZZ draws Torrential Tribute, swinging over their face down monster and bringing them one turn away from defeat with Tricky. He then activates Ground Collapse, restricting 2 of their monster zones and sets the Torrential Tribute. The Gambler plays Question, a spell made prominent by Joey Wheeler, where the opponent has to declare the name of the monster at the bottom of the graveyard. Call it right and it's banished from the game. Call it incorrectly and they can special summon it to the field. Not like it matters, as CHAZZ in response activates the trap Ojama Trio, flooding their remaining monster zones with non-tributable Ojama tokens that burn them for 300 points respectively on destruction. CHAZZ ends up calling the question correctly anyway, so the monster Gambler Legend is banished. On our turn, we draw Mirror Force and swing over 2 of the tokens, burning them for 600 points of damage. Sartorius sets a monster and passes his turn. CHAZZ draws Heavy Storm and opts not to use it, instead swinging over the remaining token and running into Sartorius's Arcana the Fool that cannot be destroyed by battle. Since we can't attack over Arcana Force 0, we spend the next couple of turns passing back and forth, expanding our board presence with Magician's Valkyria. CHAZZ draws into another copy of Symbol of Duty, reviving Arcana Force the Hanged Man and using its effect in the end phase to pop Arcana Force 0. The Gambler failing to put up anything more than just a set monster ensures our victory as we swing in directly for game. Pierre admits that he wasn't the one to steal Alexis's dress and is only here to watch her graduate, but he will keep an eye out for the thief. Detective CHAZZ is now 0-2 when it comes to apprehending the mysterious criminal. For the third event, we're called to Principal Shepherd's office by the news that the thief has stolen something else. This time far more serious, as it's the boat Duel Academy uses to transport goods to the island. With this very much being a lifeline, Detective CHAZZ blames Asta for this for some reason, even though he has a bloody private yacht. And now we have to duel against a formidable pairing of Asta and Jesse. Asta is still running his End Dragoon Turbo deck, whilst Jesse is piloting the Advanced Crystal Beast variant of his deck. The threat here obviously comes from Asta, whilst the Dark Crystal Beasts are somewhat better than their vanilla counterpart. Alongside of their switch to the Dark attribute, they also sport updated effects to support their advanced status. They're still way too clunky to be useful outside of simple beat sticks though, so they aren't really worthy of a card by card. Remember when I said that it's possible for Asta to spam 3 Dragoons in one turn? Well, he does it here. 3 times I might add. I don't think we're going to win this one unless Asta ends up breaking at some point. CHAZZ's opening hand consists of Card Destruction, Pride Shout, Mirror Force, Swords of Revealing Light, and Monster Reborn, drawing Ojama Black. He sets the Ojama alongside Pride Shout and Mirror Force, ending the turn. Asta starts strong with Terraforming, searching for the field spell Fusion Gate. He summons Elemental Hero Stratos and searches Destiny Hero Dogma from the deck. He attempts to swing over Ojama Black and CHAZZ responds with Mirror Force, activating Pride Shout in the end phase. Our opening hand consists of Monster Reborn, King's Knight, 4-Lady Starbugger Doom, Summon Skull, and Queen's Knight, drawing Tricky. We discard the Summon Skull to special summon Tricky, reviving the former with Monster Reborn and normal summoning Queen's Knight. With their field completely empty, nothing is preventing the 6,000 points of direct damage to the life points, and we end our turn feeling rather accomplished. Jesse plays the field spell Advanced Dark, setting a monster and a back row, concluding his turn with Swords of Revealing Light, preventing any further battles for 3 turns. CHAZZ draws Ground Collapse and activates Monster Reborn, reviving Aster's Stratos. Ground Collapse restricts 2 of their monster zones and he matches their swords with his own, causing a stalemate. In the following 2 turns, Aster sets a monster and we drew into Dust Tornado, setting that as well. Jesse summons Amber Mammoth in attack position and we destroy swords with a trap in the end phase. CHAZZ draws Ordra Magic and attempts to swing Stratos into Amber Mammoth. Jesse responds with the battle trap Crystal Slicer, halving Stratos' attack and destroying it as a result. Summon Skull and Tricky hit over the remaining crystal beasts. However, the set monster survives with its defense stat being greater than Queen's Knight's attack. Aster discards Destiny Hero Dunker to inflict some effect damage, setting a monster and a field spell which destroys Jesse's Advanced Dark in the process. I presume the field spell that he set here was the fusion gate he added to his hand with terraforming. Our Swords of Revealing Light expire in the end phase and we draw card Destruction, refreshing the 2 monsters in our hand for Tricky and Magical Hearts. We special summon Tricky by discarding our trap card and attempting to swing in for game. The set monster Morphing Jar added Obelisk into our hand. It's a shame that it didn't show up sooner, since this is one of the only times we managed to get a full field of monsters on the board. Regardless, we win and Detective CHAZZ is officially 0-3 in his quest for justice. Jaden implies that CHAZZ is blaming everyone aimlessly in order to duel them to create some memories before they all eventually move on from Duel Academy. And I gotta admit, this would be a thing CHAZZ would do instead of just confessing his feelings directly. I shudder at the thought at who our last opponents are though. Surely they cannot be any worse than Dragoon Turbo. The dawn of the graduation duel is once again upon us, and who will be the flavour of the month this time? Another duel with Zane and Jaden? Atticus? Bastion or Syrus? If you guessed any of these, you're wrong by the way. Our final opponents end up being the combination of Dong Salug, the card spirit, and Damon, the Tarzan lookalike that can draw any card at will. It turns out this entire time it was Dong Salug plotting all of the mischief that's been going on the island. And so we have to bet our lives in a shadow duel to get back the missing bow and dress. I really tried winning this duel with the god deck that we've been using, but it just simply didn't work out. You'd expect that Don Salug with his hand control strategy will cause the most problems. His monsters have the annoying strategy of hand destruction whenever they inflict battle damage or destroy our monsters. They are relatively weak however to counter their strong effects. Damien more than makes up for this with his deck of vanilla beatdown monsters. His deck is filled to the brim of 4-star monsters with 1900 attack points, being capable of drawing them quickly thanks to the spell card Heart of the Underdog, a spell that allows you to continue drawing cards whenever you draw a vanilla monster from the deck. You can also draw into fucking Exodia if you aren't fast enough. His floodgate of 1900 beatsticks is what's preventing us from winning this duel with the Obelisk strategy. CHAZZ has 0 monsters with an attack higher than 0, and so it was down to us and our 3 copies of Tricky to turn the tides. Something that was impossible once they managed to banish them with their many copies of DD Assailant and Warrior Lady. We can't get Obelisk on the field either as we can't keep enough monsters on the field in the first place. So in the end I reverted back to the Dark Magician Turbo deck, so we had high enough stat monsters to deal with the conveyor belts of vanillas. Granted, this was completely down to my deck building. You see, for this deck and the Man at Warrior deck, I opted for Magician's Valkyria because of the lockdown effect. Since that's the only spellcaster they can target for an attack, having 2 on the board at the same time protects them both. I simply underestimated just how difficult it was going to be to keep them on the field long enough to pull off the log. Certainly with decks that can't directly search for them against opponents that have the means to easily swing over them. What I should have done instead was add in the skilled Dark Magicians over the Valkyrias. Sure, they don't have the protection effects, but the AI rarely crushes monsters with the same stats unless they have a clear card advantage. So the 1900 attack stat would have worked a lot better in keeping our field safe over the Valkyrias. You live and learn, I guess. Anyway, CHAZZ's opening hand consists of MST, Card Trader, Pride Shout, or Jammer Delta Hurricane and Dimension Wall, drawing Mirror Force. He activates Card Trader and sets the MST and Proud Shout, ending his turn without setting the Mirror Force for some reason. Dong Salug activates Reinforcement of the Army, searching DD Assailant and summoning it to the field. He successfully attacks directly for 1700 points. That Mirror Force would have been nice right about now, CHAZZ. And CHAZZ activates Pride Shout during the main phase 2, concluding the turn. Our opening hand consists of Magician Valkyria, Polymerization, Heavy Storm, Swords of Revealing Light, and the Dark Magician, drawing Dark Magic Curtain. We have the option to use CHAZZ's card trader to send one card back to the deck in exchange of an extra draw. I for some reason sent Magician's Valkyria back to the deck when it should have been Dark Magician. We have Dark Magic Curtain in hand now, so that was the correct play, and we end up with another break in Dark Magician Girl. We pop the face down with a set MST, and it turns out to be rushed recklessly, ending our turn. I misplayed a lot here, I know. I don't even know what I was thinking. My only guess is that I was too scared to play the Swords of Revealing Light just in case they had their own back row removal, and we can't summon Dark Magician with Assailant on the board just because it's going to get banished. Setting the swords would have been the correct play, but I blame CHAZZ for not setting the Mirror Force. Continuing the misplaced shenanigans, Damien tributes to DD Assailant for Summon Skull, a monster infinitely less intimidating to hit over. We take the 2500 points of direct damage and he sets a face down. As long as CHAZZ sets the fucking Mirror Force this time, we should be fine. CHAZZ draws Ojama Trio for turn and exchanges Ojama Delta Hurricane via card trader for Ojama Black, setting it face down. He actually sets the Mirror Force, thank God, alongside Dimension Wall, ending the turn. Don Saluk did the thing. He plays himself in attack position and swings into our Ojama Black with Summon Skull. CHAZZ wipes the board clean with Mirror Force, opening them up for the first time in the duel. We draw another copy of Dark Magician Girl in exchange for another Polymerization via card trader. Using Dark Magic Curtain, we summon our Dark Magician at the cost of half our life points. We then tribute our set Ojama Black for Dark Magician Girl. The back row ends up being a bluff, so they take 2500 points of direct damage, and we set the Heavy Storm just in case Damien sets anything on his turn. Damien used hand instructions, so we both have to discard 2 cards and draw another 2. I pitched the swords here instead of the poly because I was gambling on drawing the busted blader that doesn't pop off. He summons Archfiend Soldier in attack position, swinging over the Dark Magician Girl. CHAZZ draws another Dimension Wall, exchanging it for Ojama Black through card trader, summoning it in attack position. Dark Magician swings over Archfiend, inflicting 600 points of damage, and Ojama Black attacks directly. Pride Shout resolves for the first time ever, inflicting damage to Damien equal to Ojama's defense, which is 1000 in this case. Don Saluk sets a monster and reveals the back row as Reload, allowing him to redraw his hand. He activates Reinforcement of the Army, searching Exiled Force, but doesn't summon it for some reason. Instead, setting a monster and 2 face downs. Are they scared of Ojama Black beatdown? There is no reason in any universe to not pop the Dark Magician with Exiled Force here. We draw Magic Cylinder and pitch the Dust Tornado in our hand for Old Vindictive Magician via card trader. We have the Heavy Storm, so it doesn't really matter at this stage. Speaking of which, we use it now, and it's a good thing we did, as one of the set cards was a Torrential Tribute. Discarding Polymerization allows us to summon the Tricky, and we set Old Vindictive and Cylinders as insurance. Tricky swings over Sanguine, and Don Saluk adds Morphing Jar to hand. Dark Magician attacks directly, giving us the life point lead for the first time in the duel. Damien activates the spell card Dark Factory of Mass Reproduction, allowing him to add 2 vanilla monsters from the graveyard to his hand. He adds Summon Skull and Mad Dog of Darkness. He summons Mad Dog, attempting to swing into Ojama Black for game, and in true attempt fashion, the Magic Cylinder redirects his attack, handing us the win instead. A terrible start, but we managed to bring it back with the bait. Don Saluk has no choice but to return the items he stole. Except for the fried shrimp, he already ate those. Finally apprehending the thief responsible, the CHAZZ leaves the Pro League, ending his partnership with a 10. You can tell by the crowd that they're happy that he's finally leaving. Alexis' character arc revolves less around being a love interest like in Season 4 and is far closer to a key struggles at the end of 5Ds. Or a key struggles are like Alexis's from this game. You know what I mean. With graduation on the horizon, she's unsure on what path she should actually take. She drags a 10 to meet Mindy and Jasmine, who aren't happy to see the greatest duelist of all time, but they need Alexis' help to pass an exam so they can become teachers or something. Hence, we have to duel them both, and I'm not looking forward to this one. Jasmine plays Harpy Ladies, an archetype that's actually pretty good at this point in time. Her strategy is to search out the field spell Harpy's Hunting Ground by discarding Harpy Queen, a 1900 point attacker which is pretty formidable on its own. Hunting Ground not only boosts the attack of all her winged beast monsters, every time she summons a Harpy Lady card whilst it's on the field, she can destroy one spell or trap card. With an abundance of Harpies, including Harpy Queen, alongside Cyber Harpy Lady, we pretty much will be without a consistent defense throughout this entire duel. Mindy herself plays this really strange burn deck centered around the spell Dark Snake Syndrome. This card is weird because for every turn it stays on the field, both players take 200 points of damage, and then it doubles up from then on for every standby phase. Don't get me wrong, it does the job of lowering our life points, but since the effect is reciprocal, it always makes it a lot easier to kill her as well. As long as her life points are lower than ours before the effect starts to get too nasty, it's entirely possible for her to self-destruct by her own hand. Alexis herself is still using the very ritual oriented deck, which should be fine in this instance. Still though, this summoning mechanic is around 6 years away from becoming viable with Necros. Mindy sets a monster and activates Dark Snake Syndrome right off the bat, putting us all on the clock. She then protects it further with Magic Reflector, which equips Dark Snake with a token and can prevent its destruction for as many tokens it currently has. Alexis' opening hand consists of Hecatrice, Premature Burial, Polymerization, Soul of Purity and Light, and Machine Angel Ritual. She discards Hecatrice for cost so she can search Valhalla Hall of the Fallen to hand, activating it. She then revives Hecatrice with Premature Burial, swinging over the set monster Giant Rat, which replaces itself through its effect. Dark Snake Syndrome resolves and we both take 200 points of damage. Jasmine plays Creature Swap, taking our Hecatrice in exchange for their Giant Rat. She then discards Harpy Queen to search Harpy's Hunting Ground, activating the field spell immediately. She fumbles the bag here when summoning Harpy Lady, opting to destroy Premature Burial instead of Valhalla, so the Hecatrice under their control goes back to the graveyard. Harpy Lady, buffed by Hunting Ground, is able to swing over the rat, and she concludes the turn setting 2 back row. Our opening hand consists of Magic Cylinder, the Tricky, Dust Tornado, Summon Skull, and Alpha the Magnet Warrior, drawing Mirror Force. We set the Mirror Force and Magic Cylinders, discarding the Summon Skull to special summon Tricky. I opted to keep Alpha here, summoning it in attack position before setting the Dust Tornado. Jasmine responds with Icarus Attack, a nasty trap card that gets even stronger with the introduction of Black Wings in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. But essentially by attributing a winged beast monster to their control, you can then destroy 2 cards on the opponent's side of the field, so she destroys our attacking monsters. She can run this at 3 copies as well, so we could very well see it a lot in this duel. In the next standby phase, Dark Snake Syndrome resolves for 400 damage, and we chain the Dust Tornado to rid the field of Harpy's Hunting Ground. Still confident we can get their life points lower than ours before Dark Snake becomes too much of a problem. The AI, being the AI, uses Jasmine's Hysteric Party, which allows them to summon as many Harpies as possible from the graveyard. She revives both Harpy Queen and Harpy Lady, and then activates Giant Trunade. This rids the field of Hysteric Party and both of the monsters, as they destroy themselves when the card leaves the field. She also resets the counter on Dark Snake, biding us a little more time with this move. All she can do is reactivate Dark Snake Syndrome and setting a monster and a back row. Alexis draws Cyber Angel Dakini and uses the Machine Ritual Art spell to summon it to the field. Despite the investment of playing rituals, it's actually a decent boss monster. As mentioned before, it's a 2700 point attacker with the ability to pop a card on summon, and it even deals piercing damage to boot. She then banishes a light from the grave to special summon Soul of Purity and Light, another 2000 point beat stake. The field is wide open at this point, and they take a combined 4700 points of direct damage, putting us in the lead for the first time, as well as them on a time clock. Dark Snake Syndrome burns both players for 200 damage, and Jasmine activates her face down Hysteric Party again to revive both her Harpies in defense. She discards Harpy Queen again from hand to search for another Hunting Ground and refuses to play it for some reason. We draw Light's Force Sword, setting it alongside our other traps and activating the Valhalla that was bounced to the hand from Giant Trunade. With no other plays, we swing over both of their monsters and they take a further 1500 points in direct damage from Dakini, ending the turn. During Misty's standby phase, we make great use of the Light Force Sword to banish the card she drew for turn. Dark Snake burns both of us for 400 points, but it doesn't matter as she's unable to play the card in her hand, winning us the duel. We get some pretty interesting tidbits into how Jasmine and Mindy first met, and how their teacher made them become friends by getting them to understand each other. They were inspired by her and now want to become teachers themselves. It's a rather small plot point, but I do love how the Type Force games end up giving even the minor characters a satisfying conclusion. A bunch of these guys are just thrown to the wayside in Season 3 and 4, so at least we get a glimpse into how their own story arcs unfold through this game. Alexis still isn't any closer into figuring out what she wants to do herself, leaving the two with far more confidence than she has towards her own future. Alexis rises to 10 from his beauty sleep at the crack of dawn, because the CHAZZ wants to see her at the cliff and sensing bad vibes after what happened at the lighthouse. She needs a mind crush specialist on hand to get her out of this predicament. Asta is with CHAZZ having somehow lost to him in this continuity of season 4. Bro is playing Destiny End Dragoon Turbo and still somehow got slapped by Ojama Lockdown. There is no hope for this man. CHAZZ wants to duel Alexis so it'll be etched into her heart whilst he's gone, and naturally we are caught up in this so it becomes another tag duel. Like before, CHAZZ is still on that garbage mashup deck of Ojama Control and the Union Monsters. Expect him to brick heavily this time around without Alexis making up for it with the triple ground collapse. Asta has decided to retire his Dragoon Turbo deck in favour of a more vanilla flavour of the Destiny heroes revolving around the Clock Tower Prison Field spell. This card can negate damage when it has 4 or more tokens placed on it, and turbos into the ace of the deck Dreadmaster when destroyed with said amount of counters equipped to it. He's still on the good stuff like the Destiny Draw, Diamond Dude for its ability to freely activate spells from the top of the deck, Dunker to inflict burn damage, the Recruiter in Mystic Tomato to target his weaker Destiny heroes like Fearmonger, which can cheese out any Destiny hero aside from itself from the grave, or Dread Servant that can add a token to the Clock Tower and pots a back row if it's destroyed by battle. Aside from the staples, he runs 2 copies of Reinforcement of the Army to search for whatever hero he needs at that time, 2 copies of Terraforming as well to search for the Clock Tower, and Crush Card Virus that will nuke our deck if he's able to resolve the effect. Alongside further traps such as Eternal Dread that adds 2 counters to the Clock Tower, and 2 copies of D-Counter, the Sakuretsu Armor of the archetype. This variation of Asta's deck is nowhere near as threatening as the End Dragoon Turbo deck he used in the past, but it's still quite decent. We just have to hope CHAZZ ends up breaking and forcing this into a 2v1. Alexis' opening hand consists of Monster Reborn, Etoile Cyber, Cyber Prima, Hecateis and Ritual Weapon, drawing Dakimi for turn. She discards Hecateis, searching for Valhalla Hall of the Fallen, activating it. Reborning the Hecateis allows her to tribute it for Cyber Prima in attack position. This results in her destroying her own spell card as Prima pops all face-up spells upon tribute summoning. This results in her destroying her own spell card as Prima pops all face-up spells on summon. CHAZZ activates his continuous spell Frontline Base. This is the Union equivalent of Valhalla, granting him a special summon for a Union monster once per turn. He resolves this effect, summoning W-Wing Catapult in defense position. It seems that he braked, as that's all he could muster before ending his turn. Our opening hand consists of the Tricky, Mirror Force, Magician's Valkyria, Dust Tornado and Upstart Goblin, drawing card destruction for turn. We set both traps and activate Upstart Goblin to draw another card, this being Summon Skull. Opting to put the pressure on them immediately, we pitch the Summon Skull to special summon Tricky and commit our normal summon for Magician's Valkyria. This might have been a misplay looking back considering he breaks, but I decided to use card destruction to force CHAZZ into a completely new hand. We did rip Dimension Fusion from his hand door, and with how annoying that card is, it works out. Anyways, Magician Valkyria is able to swing over the Wing Catapult, and CHAZZ can do nothing to prevent the 4300 points of direct damage. Asta plays his Clock Tower Field spell, and this can get annoying very quickly if he's able to equip the required amount of tokens to negate battle damage. Considering all he could do after this was set a monster and a back row, it just made more sense to pop the face down as we're 1 turn away from winning at this point anyway, as long as Alexis can swing over the set monster that is. The face down card ends up being Crush Card Virus, so we made the correct play here. Alexis draws Manju of the Thousand Hands and Clock Tower resolves, adding its first spell counter. She summons Manju and activates its effect to add 1 ritual card or ritual monster to her hand on normal summon. Already possessing Dakimi in hand, she adds Machine Angel Ritual to hand. Activating it immediately, she sends Manju and the Etoile Cyber she has in hand as cost to ritual summon Dakimi in attack position. Dakini's effect resolves and her set monster is destroyed, this being Destiny Hero Defender, and with their field empty, she swings for game. This could have gone pear-shaped rather quickly if we opted to pop the Clock Tower instead of the face down with Tornado. Always bet on the face downs. CHAZZ might be an idiot at times, but he clearly has passion for what he wants in life, including Alexis. He vows to challenge Alexis 10 times over until she finally acknowledges him before storming off. Even she has to admire him at this point, and we leave ourselves for a lovely brunch date. It wouldn't be a tier 1 duelist campaign without the graduation ceremony. And it appears 1 heart earlier than usual, so I wonder what the gist is with that. Alexis drags our ass to the dueling field, having already scheduled our opponents ahead of time. The opposing team consisting of both Jaden and Atticus, the 2 people she has a score to settle with the most. Both Atticus and Jaden are piloting the decks they used when we dueled them in Blair's story. The only difference here is that we won't have her light swans to carry us. Going first seems to be the sensible option. Alexis needs to set up the key meet as soon as possible if we want to stand any chance. Alexis' opening hand consists of Machine Ritual Arts, Mirror Force, Swords of Revealing Light, Cyber Angel Ida 10 and Monster Reborn, drawing Manju for turn which she summons, activating the effect to search Dakini to hand. Setting the Mirror Force, she ends her turn. Atticus summons Panther Warrior and setting 2 back rows for good measure. Our opening hand consists of 2 copies of Upstart Goblin, Premature Burial, Ancient Rules and Card Destruction, drawing Alpha the Magnet Warrior. We activate Card Destruction to refresh our hand, activating Fisher to pop his Panther Warrior, and by summoning Bastion to the field we can swing in for 3100 points of damage. Jaden summons Elemental Hero Prisma in attack position, using its effect to change its name to Elemental Hero Neos for the turn by milling a copy of Neos to the graveyard from the deck. This allows him to revive Neos with Oversoul and attempting to swing over our monsters. We respond with Mirror Force attempting to clear the field, and Jaden negates this with Atticus' set Royal Decree, negating all other track cards on the field. Our board presence is now decimated and we take 1100 points of damage from the respective battle. Alexis draws Hecritus and discards it to search Valhalla to the hand, playing both that and her Sword of Revealing Light. Atticus draws the out in Heavy Storm, and with nothing preventing them from attacking, normal summons the 2k beatstake Gene Warped Werewolf in attack position, hitting us for a clean 6200 points of damage, leaving us with a poverty 700 life points remaining. We break with another copy of Summoned Skull, and knowing that Alexis has Reborn in her hand, we use our Monster Reincarnation discarding one of the skulls, returning Beta the Magnet Warrior back to hand. We should be able to survive the next turn thanks to the swords in our hand, so we summon Beta, playing around the potential Nobleman Necrosso and activate Swords of Revealing Light. We're safe as long as Jaden doesn't have any spell trap removal in hand. Jaden uses Prisma's effect again to mill another copy of Neos to the graveyard, and tributes both his Prisma and Gene Warped Werewolf to summon another copy of Neos. Usually I would count this as a misplay of the AI prioritising its ace monster over the board state, but considering our strongest monster we can summon with Reborn is also 2500 points, this was a smart play from the AI. Jaden thankfully didn't have any back row removal, setting a card and passing it over to Alexis. She draws Manju and then activates Machine Ritual Art, discarding the Manju and our Beta to summon Dakimi in attack position. Dakimi's effect resolves, destroying one of the Neos, and she runs right into the Sakuretsu armor when attempting to swing over the remaining Neos. Thankfully, she still had Reborn in hand and is able to revive a 2700 point beatstake to the field in main phase 2, destroying the other copy of Neos. Atticus offers a humble tea set and passes. We draw the Tricky and special summon it to the field, discarding our Summoned Skull. We attempt to swing over the monster with Dakini for the piercing damage, and Atticus responds with Enemy Controller, changing its battle position to defense. His set monster still flips over, revealing Panther Warrior, and we take it out with Tricky. Jaden offers a single set monster and our copy of Swords expires at the end of his turn, with us coming out of the other side in the driver's seat. Alexis draws another copy of Manju and switches Dakimi back into attack position. She swings over Jaden's set card, Neos Alias, dealing 1400 points of piercing damage. This reduces their life points to 3500, allowing them to barely survive the turn with a measly 100 points remaining, as we can only muster up 3400 points of direct damage this turn. Atticus sets, "One monster, let's fucking go," and ends his turn. We finally conclude the duel by swinging over it with Dakimi. If it wasn't for Alexis and her boss monster, we wouldn't have found a way out of this duel. I gotta put some respect on the ritual's name. Atticus, blown away by his sister's growth, wants to reform the cult classic duo act of Bro and Sissy. He is immediately shot down as Alexis and Jaden both discover what path they want to follow, and the graduation duel comes to a close in emphatic fashion. Everyone is now gearing up for graduation, and Atem is preparing his deck to sweep Jaden again with Slifer, when Alexis barges in abruptly asking him to spend the day with her. She takes us to the lighthouse. I'm liking where this is going, chat, and challenges us to a duel. Oh, okay. This duel takes place under really weird circumstances. You'd imagine since this is the final event, Alexis herself will be using her most powerful ritual deck. Quite the contrary, she's actually piloting a weaker variation that essentially mashes every win condition she has together. She's still playing the likes of Dakimi and the playset of Manju and Senju, but Dakimi sits here at only 2 copies. There's not really going to be much of an opportunity for her to get this online. She instead opts for her weaker rituals in Ida 10 and Ben 10, both incredibly lackluster for the resources you have to commit to even get them on the board. She has some good generic stuff in Sangan, Marshmelon and Morphing Jar. Soul of the Purity Light, as mentioned, is a 2k beta that can be special summoned, and Majestic Mech Orca can be normal summoned from the hand without a tribute, sitting at a mighty 2400 points, but it goes to the graveyard in the end phase if it's summoned in this manner. The rest of the monsters that she uses are the fusion materials she uses in the anime to fusion summon Cyberblader. The deck itself is just too slow for her to realistically get the stronger cards in the game, so I don't expect this to be too difficult for us at all. Our opening hand consists of Magician Valkyria, Summon Skull, Upstart Goblin, the Tricky and Alpha the Magnet Warrior drawing Monster Reincarnation. Upstart Goblin gives us Dust Tornado, which we then immediately set, discarding Summon Skull to special summon Tricky in attack position. Summoning Magician's Valkyria here guarantees Tricky's survival for at least a turn, and we pass it over to Alexis. Alexis discards Hecratize to search Valhalla Hall of the Fallen, and she activates it immediately. Summoning Manju of the Thousand Hands, she searches for Cyber Angel Ida 10 from the deck, setting 2 face downs. In the end phase, we activate Dust Tornado, popping the set to our far left, which turns out to be the trap Miraculous Descent. We draw another copy of Monster Reincarnation, activating it. By discarding our other reincarnation, we bring Summon Skull back to the hand, summoning Alpha the Magnet Warrior in attack and swinging over a Manju with Magician's Valkyria. Our next 2 direct attacks succeed, costing Alexis 3600 points this turn. In response, she banishes Hecratize from the grave to special summon Solar Purity Light in attack position, swinging over our Alpha. We draw Gamma the Magnet Warrior and tribute Magician's Valkyria for our Summon Skull in hand. Summon Skull is able to swing over Solar Purity and Light, and our monsters regain the 300 points they lost because of the latter's effect. Tricky swings in for 2000 points of direct damage, ending the turn. Alexis summons Majestic Mech Orca and swings over the Tricky, inflicting 400 points of damage. Orca is removed in the end phase due to its effect. For our turn, we draw into Magic Cylinder, setting it face down. We then summon Gamma the Magnet Warrior in attack position and attempt to swing in for game. The face down card that Alexis set in the previous turn turns out to be a bluff, and we somehow manage to win in a one-sided fashion. Accepting her defeat, Alexis explains the situation. She initially wanted to stay at Duel Academy to become a researcher. That was until Chancellor Shepard asked her if she wanted to study abroad at the prestigious Duel College the day prior to becoming our partner. Despite this being a no-brainer and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, she can't decide what she wants to do. Because of you, Atem. Given by what is implied next by the dialogue, I guess the legend of the lighthouse is true after all. With 6 out of the 7 campaigns now under our belts, you might be wondering, where the hell is Bastion? With the rest of the cast thinking he's still stuck in the other dimension, I guess the developers thought the same too. For real though, despite technically being a tier 1 duelist in the game, he isn't actually available from the start like the other 6. In fact, the way you have to unlock him is quite bizarre. There are 2 methods available to us to obtain Bastion as a partner. One is far simpler than the other. The first is by locating him on the island throughout the other campaigns, and once you eventually find him, you can unlock his story by defeating him 10 times. This has always been weird to me, as this is usually the unlock requirement to access the character alts, so it's weird they locked the final story under this requirement as well. The second option, which is far easier I might add, involves having access to a copy of the previous 2 Tag Force games. In the database option of the main menu, you'll see something called PSP UMD Recognition. By clicking on this and then putting in another PSP game, you will unlock a variety of cards and other goodies. This is commonly used in the Tag Force series to give the player easy means of accessing the various character alts or the Egyptian god cards. In fact, this is the way you unlock all 4 of Blair's alternate forms. By using PSP UMD Recognition with Tag Force 1 and 2, this will unlock Bastion as a partner in the story mode. The gags aside, I believe they did this because Bastion might have the best story in the entire game. It's clear that the Tag Force 3 devs really like him and the potential his character offers as a whole. They treat him with far more respect than the anime ever did at least. The spectral apparition of Bastion haunts us in the dead of night, explaining that he actually wound up on the same beach as Zane and Adrian. The interesting thing about this is that I don't think Adrian is ever mentioned in season 4. I could be wrong, but I'm 99% certain that he remains dead in the other dimension, so it's cool that they actually remembered to include him here. For the remainder of his time before graduation, Bastion has been interning at the Academy's lab hidden deep within the forest, and so as his partner, we're obligated to do the same as well. Whilst partnering with Bastion, the running gag of him being forgotten by everyone rubs off on us as well. They remember the famous King of Games, but can't quite remember his name. Atem thought he was past this stage of his life. I guess not. The doctor at the lab instructs us to go and collect the faulty cards that have been showing up as of late, tainted by darkness. Fearing the worst, we run into both Hasselberry and Jim near the entrance, the pair also investigating these cards. Bastion challenges them to a tag duel, with the gambit that the loser leaves, not wanting them to get involved like the Giga Chad he is. Hasselberry runs his second Dino deck, which all boils down to a weaker version of his all-3 deck from earlier. For the most part, the cards are exactly the same, it's just that the ratios have been reduced to make this far less consistent. He fills the hole in the deck with vanilla 1900 beatsteaks, but he will have a much harder time establishing board presence this time around, when he's only running 1 to 2 copies of his better monsters. Jim himself plays a rock control type deck, designed around bouncing our monsters back to the hand with his Golden Sentry and Guardian Sphinx, all the while extending his own board with the many fusions in his deck, and his boss monster in Mega Rock Dragon that can be special summoned by banishing Earth attribute monsters from his graveyard, and the attack of this card becomes 700 times the amount banished. As Hasselberry also plays primarily Earth attribute monsters, Mega Rock has the potential to become quite beefy. Gigantis can be special summoned from the hand by banishing an Earth monster from the grave, and it has a decent stat line sitting at 1900 attack. He weirdly plays 2 copies of Terraforming despite not playing any field spells at all, and unironically runs Reverse Trap at 2 copies. This synergizes strictly with his Efflorescent Knight's disruptive side effect, as Reverse Trap will force any stat altering text to be reversed. So if a card effect states that it adds to an attack, it now subtracts. Subtracts now adds, multiplication now divides, so on and so forth. I'm not sure how useful this is going to be in practice, as it only impacts the field until the end phase. An Efflorescent Knight's effect forces it to lose 600 attack every end phase, so I guess we'll have to wait and find out. Since Bastion is known himself for playing multiple decks, one of which centering around the Magnet Warrior cards, our final deck is also designed around the 4 that Atem used during his time in the Battle City tournament. As such, we're playing a playset of Beta, Alpha and Gamma to ensure we can draw into them as often as possible. What potentially saves the latter two's terrible stats is that Valkyrion, the boss monster of the deck, can be special summoned as long as you have all 3 in the hand or on the field. This is way better than I initially thought, as I misremembered this card having to be tributed. Thank God that isn't the case. For the rest of the deck, it's pretty much the same as the previous one. We're still running 3 copies of Magician Valkyria and 3 copies of Tricky, 2 summon schools that synergize with ancient rules. Monster Reincarnation can manipulate our hand and provide more flexibility than we otherwise would have. And of course, all the staple back row Atem has ever had access to. Bastion is still running the half-baked battery deck from earlier, so we opt to go first. Bastion's opening hand consists of Metal Reflex Slime, Battery Man D, Giant Trunade, and a high level monster that I can't quite make out, and Battery Charge. Drawing another spell I can't quite make out. These cards are just blurry as hell, bro. He sets the Battery Man alongside Metal Reflex Slime, ending his turn. Jim summons Efflorescent Knight in attack position, swinging over Battery Man D, ending his turn with a set card. Efflorescent Knight effect kicks in during the end phase and loses 600 attack points, reducing its start line to 1400. Our opening hand consists of Upstart Goblin, the Tricky, Mirror Force, Gamma the Magnet Warrior and Light Force Sword, drawing Beta the Magnet Warrior. Upstart Goblin gives us Swords of Revealing Light from its draw effect, and we set our 2 trap cards, discarding Gamma to special summon Tricky in attack position. Normal summoning Beta, we swing over his Knight with it, dealing 300 points of damage in the process. The back row ends up being a bluff, so Tricky can attack directly as well. Hasselberry discards his Destroyosaurus to search the Jurassic World field spell to hand from the deck. Before it can fully resolve, we chain Light Force Sword, banishing 1 card from his hand. We don't hit the Jurassic World door as he activates it and sets a monster. Bastion draws another high level monster I can't quite make out and swings into the set monster with Tricky. Beta attacks directly, reducing the life points to 5000. Jim banishes one of Hazelberry's dinos from the grave to special summon Gigantus in attack position and attempts to swing over Beta the Magnet Warrior. Bastion responds with Mirror Force, wiping their monster board away. All Jim can do now is set a monster before passing the turn. We draw Monster Reincarnation. Entering the battle phase, we successfully swing over the set monster with Tricky and attack directly again with Beta. To lock them down, we activate Swords of Revealing Light in the main phase 2, and unless Hazelberry draws the out, we can win on our next turn. The only way they can survive is if their set card is literally Mirror Force, but it doesn't seem like they drew the out, setting a humble T set and ending the turn. Bastion draws Premature Burial and doesn't use it, so they survive the battle with 1600 life points. I genuinely think we had game if he had committed to the Premature. He could have used True Nade from hand to minimise the risk of a Torrential Tribute as well. Light Force Sword officially expires on Jim's standby phase, returning the banished card to his hand. It ends up being a monster as he sets it alongside another back row. We draw Valkyrion the Magnet Warrior and attempt to swing in for game. Jim responds with Sakuretsu Armor, destroying Tricky. They survive the turn as Beta swings over Giant Rat, special summoning legendary Jujitsu Master via its Recruiter effect. Hazelberry sets a monster and switches Jujitsu Master into defense position. Swords then expire in the end phase. Bastion draws Heavy Storm, ridding the entire field of any spell traps, taking out the other copy of Sakuretsu Armor. Premature revives Tricky from the grave. He then uses True Nade to bounce Premature back to the hand, and Tricky survives because Premature didn't go to the graveyard. Tricky is then returned to the top of Bastion's deck upon resolution of Jujitsu Master's destruction effect, and Beta is unable to swing over the remaining 2k defender, inflicting 300 points of damage to us. Jim takes advantage of this by banishing 3 rock monsters from their graveyard to special summon his boss monster in Mega Rock Dragon, sitting at a hefty 2800 attack points now. Mega Rock destroys Beta and we lose 1100 points from the battle. Black Stego swings in for 1200 and succeeds as well. Jim ends his turn with a humble T-set and pass as the duel starts to slowly slip away from our grasp. Is what I would be saying if we weren't the main character with cheat, I mean the heart of the cards of course. Drawing Magic Cylinder at the exact moment that we needed it. There is a Destiny draw mechanic built into the game by the way, which allows you to draw your set Destiny card in a pinch. Why would we even use it when we can draw whatever card we want anyways? It's a skill issue. Hazelberry revives the Efflorescent Knight from the grave, but it doesn't fucking matter as the hacks of magical cylinders redirects their attack, winning us the game. Let's go. As per the agreement, the duo piss off and Bastion goes back to the lab alone to complete the assignment. In the next event, we catch a stray from Syrus of all people, saying it would be great if there was an energy that could increase the presence of both Bastion and Atem so they get noticed more. I don't think you're in the position to be talking smack, Syrus. Nevertheless, we return to the lab, and after an experiment to connect the other dimension going horribly wrong, because of course it does, the dual spirit Jinzo is manifested into our world, and he's out for vengeance. He remembers what we did to him back in Egypt, so we got a duel in to send him packing. Jinzo plays a dark attribute beatdown deck filled with strong monsters that are easy to get on board and are flexible. He of course has the playset of giant germs to stall and inflict burn damage, utility in Snipe Hunter that can pop a card on the field if it rolls anything but a 1 or a 6, and it isn't a hard once per turn either. Sangan is here to search for other monsters, and Spirit Reaper can't be destroyed by battle, so it serves as a functioning wall. Morphing Jar is included for the draw power, and if he summons either copy of himself, we have to pretty much contend with a 2400 beta without the help of our removal traps, and the only monster we have that can swing over Jinzo is Valkyrion, who is going to be quite difficult to get on board under a time crunch. To make matters worse, both Jinzos are running a copy of Crush Card Virus and 2 copies of Deck Devastation Virus, providing ample opportunities to crush both Valkyrion and the individual Magnet Warriors from our hand. Ectoplasma serves as both Control and Burn. Control because its mandatory effect forces both players to tribute one of their monsters in the end phase, and Burn as the opponent will take damage equal to half of the selected monster's attack stat. This might end up being useful for us because if we end up in the perilous predicament of fighting Jinzo, if we can limit the field of his other monsters, he will have to tribute the Jinzo in that scenario. I think the play here is for us to go first. We don't want to give them the chance to set up on us from the jump. Bastion's opening hand consists of Plasma Warrior Etom, Spirit Charge, Morphing Jar, Judgment of Thunder and Metal Reflex Slime, drawing Battery Man AA for turn. He summons AA in attack position, setting his 2 trap cards. Jinzo summons Giant Orc in attack position, a level 4 2200 beatstick that switches to defense mode after it attacks. He swings over AA and we take 1100 points of damage for the trouble. In main phase 2, he activates Ectoplasma, targeting his giant orc, and we take an additional 1100 points of damage, ending the turn with a set card. Our opening hand consists of 2 copies of the Tricky, Summon Skull, Magician's Valkyria, and Monster Reincarnation, drawing Gamma the Magnet Warrior. Sensing blood in the water, we summon both Trickies from our hand by discarding Summon Skull and Valkyria respectively. This will allow us to keep 1 beat stick on the field, providing the set card isn't anything nasty. Fortunately for us it wasn't, and Jinzol takes 4000 points of direct damage and an additional 1000 points of burn from the effects of his Ectoplasma, surviving with 3000 life points remaining. Jinzol 2 uses Premature Burial to revive Giant Orc once again. He then normal summons the most annoying card in existence, Snipe Hunter, using its effect to pop our Tricky by discarding a card from his hand. He tries to pop Bastion's Judgment of Thunder face down card and rolls a 1. We aren't safe from the succeeding damage from the Giant Orc though, but we do block Snipe Hunter with Metal Reflect Slime. We allow Giant Orc to swing through to make sure it switches into defense position, predicting the AI to stack Snipe Hunter with Ectoplasma, which it does, and we lose 750 points, but we are put in a much more favourable position with Snipe Hunter now gone. Bastion draws Saborg the Thunder Monarch and sacrifices Metal Reflect Slime to summon Plasma Warrior Etom in attack position. He activates Judgment of Thunder, which can destroy a card when a Thunder type monster is summoned, targeting Giant Orc. Bastion swings the game right into Jinzol's Mirror Force, and he is forced to set Morphing Jar and his spell card, ending the turn. Jinzol sets a monster and we draw another copy of Gamma the Magnet Warrior, discarding one of them to return Tricky to our hand with Monster Reincarnation. We special summon Tricky, discarding the other Gamma, and like the greedy pricks we are, refresh our hand with Bastion's Morphing Jar. For our normal summon, we play Alpha, setting the Dust Tornado on Light's Force Sword we drew from Morphing Jar's effect. Tricky swings over to set Mask of Darkness, and its flip effect resolves, re-adding Mirror Force to the hand from the grave. They will not have the chance to use it though, as both Morphing Jar and Alpha swings in to Jinzol directly, leaving them with 100 life points remaining. Points that are burned away by the effects of their very own Ectoplasma. Oof, that one's gotta sting. With enough dual energy required, the machine that brought Jinzol to this world is able to send them back. He parts with us with a foreboding Warning of Darkness, as he etches Atem's face into his wank bank for personal use only. For all of the trouble this doctor has caused over the years, you'd think they would have fired him by now, or have him arrested, but no. We leave the area to ponder what Jinzol's final words could have possibly meant. This man cannot catch a break. On his way to meet with us, he ran into Chancellor Shepard, who deadass asked him with a straight face if he was used to the academy yet, confusing him for a freshman. I'm convinced this is all a ploy by the students and staff to rage bait him. It's the only explanation at this point. We aren't left to ponder Jinzol's final words for long as we return to the forest to fuck up things some more. We are ambushed once again by Truman. Truman tries to exploit the doubt in Bastion's heart, but he's too strong-willed for that and thus challenges us to a duel sporting his Dark World deck. Dark Worlds like Light Swans were another prominent archetype during this period of the real game. Unlike the latter though, which focus on an aggro mill strategy to turbo into Judgment Dragon, the Dark Worlds instead focus on hand destruction. The whole gimmick surrounding this deck is whenever a Dark World monster is discarded from the hand, they can trigger numerous effects and special summon some of their stronger monsters directly from the grave. This in a sense also prevents us from making use of our limited draw power in card destruction, because all we'll accomplish by using it is furthering their game state. Aside from the basic vanillas, the monsters available to Truman are quite the force. Gold and silver are 2300 point beat sticks that can be special summoned when discarded. Gold is Dark World's answer to Morbius essentially, also being able to pop 2 of the opponent's back row, while silver will rip 2 cards directly from our hand, placing them on the bottom of the deck in the order we choose. It's essential legal delinquent duo for God's sake. Bronn can discard 1 card from the hand whenever it inflicts battle damage, so they could for example summon gold or silver to attack a second time. Bronn is also the monster spirit responsible for awakening the Supreme King in Jaden during the events of Season 3. Naturally, they both play Morphing Jar as it synergizes incredibly well with the archetype. Sanguine for the searches, and the spell cards Dark World Lightning and Dark World Dealings can destroy an opponent's card and draw a card from the deck respectively at the cost of discarding a card. It's not exactly a cost when it comes to this deck though, is it? It's more of a luxury. Card destruction is included for obvious reasons. Gateway to the Dark World is essentially reborn for the archetype. Meanwhile, the rest of the deck is stacked to the brim with power staples alongside 2 copies of Shrink. We might actually be cooked this time around. Bastion's opening hand consists of Metal Reflect Slime, Batteryman Microcell, Batteryman D, Saborg the Thunder Monarch, and Batteryman Industrial Strength, drawing Portable Battery Pack. He sets Batteryman D alongside his 2 trap cards. Trueman immediately starts things off with Dark World dealings, forcing each player to draw and then discard 1 card from hand. Naturally, he discards Gold, Wu Lord of Dark World, allowing him to special summon it from the grave as it was discarded via a card effect. It's not a good sign that he's able to get this off so quickly, since both versions of him are playing this exact deck. Gold swings over Batteryman D and ends his turn with a Humble Tea set. Our opening hand consists of 2 copies of the Tricky, Magician's Valkyria, Fisher, and Summon Skull, drawing Light Force Sword for turn. Fisher will pop the weakest attacking monster face up on their side of the field, destroying Gold as the only other monster they have is a set card. We discard Summon Skull and Magician's Valkyria respectively to summon both copies of Tricky to the field, setting Light Force Sword. We activate Bastion's Portable Battery Pack trap, and this revives both monsters destroyed in the previous turn to the field in attack position. Trueman destroys Battery Pack with MST when we swing in with Tricky into the set monster, destroying the 2 monsters we just revived. His set monster survives the attack being a 2100 defender, and we end our turn taking 100 points from the battle. We activate Light Force Sword during Trueman's draw phase, banishing 1 card from his hand. He offers up a Humble Tea set and passes. Bastion draws Mirror Force, banishing 2 of his Thunder monsters in the graveyard to special summon Industrial Strength in attack position. Trueman counters this with Bottomless Trap Hole, banishing Industrial. He tributes one of our Trickies, summoning Saborg the Thunder Monarch, popping Gatekeeper of the Dark World per the effect on summon. Saborg swings over Scar, Scout of the Dark World, and its effect adds another copy of Gatekeeper to Trueman's hand. They take 2000 points of direct damage from Tricky, and Bastion ends the turn by setting Mirror Force. Trueman sets a monster and we draw Alpha the Magnet Warrior for turn, summoning it to the field. Saborg swings over another Scar, and this time adds Cyril, Monk of Dark World, to hand. We swing in directly for a combined 3400 points of damage, passing our turn. If you're wondering why we always attack with our weakest monster first, it's to play around Gauze, which is also extremely prominent during this era of the game. Trueman loves his Humble Tea set and passes so much that he does another one, and Bastion draws Monster Reborn, reviving our Summoned Skull, only to be countered by another Bottomless Trap Hole. We are forever punished. It doesn't matter at this point though, as Saborg is able to swing over the remaining Gatekeeper and we win the duel. Bastion channels his inner tier Garner with his Power of Friendship speech, sending Trueman packing in the process. Jaden appears hot on pursuit of the Strange Darkness, and asks us if he can depend on us to protect the island if he's gone, already planning his early departure that we saw in his own campaign. The day comes to a close as the true graduation duel looms ever closer. For the final time in this run, we are dragged to the duel field for the graduation duel. The list of potential opponents is endless. Will it be Jaden? Zane? Asta? Seto Kaiba? Will Maximilian Pegasus finally recognise Bastion's brilliance and be the first person to put some respect on his name? We show up to an empty duel field and confront our opposition, the generic duo of the Tag Force filler Raello students of Rune and Rare. Worries everyone? Have they all succumbed to darkness? Is evil afoot and about to strike right at this pivotal moment in history? Well, no. Everyone else has gone to watch the duel to determine the 3rd place duelist. Yes, they hold such little respect for Bastion here that they would rather watch a duel to determine 3rd place than the rightful deserving trailblazers of the graduating class. Even our opponent's friends went over there to watch Jaden, CHAZZ, Alexis and Atticus duel. Hell, even they want to go over there and watch as well. But it's at this moment when all of Bastion's expectations are shattered, his hopes, his dreams, his doubts now proven true, that he finds the strength of character and realises that it doesn't matter anymore. He is done begging for the respect of others. It no longer concerns him. He duels for his own reasons and not for the shallow approval of his fellow classmen, and he is going to be damn sure to make this one count. Rune pilots a deck of what essentially boils down to recruiters to stall out the game, and a number of beatsticks that he can summon in the form of Enraged Battlelocks, Gigantes, and his boss monster Sacred Phoenix of Nephis. Nephis here is a 2400 stat line attacker that can be revived from the grave if it's destroyed by a card effect. This is pretty important as our only real way of dealing with this thing is via card effects. If it's special summoned through this means, it then wipes the field clear of back row. So we're going to want to try our best to stay way clear of this. The far more fascinating aspects of his deck are the trap cards he plays to generate value from Nephis clearing the back row. Blastwick Chain is an equipped trap that can target and destroy a card when it's destroyed itself. Dark Coffin and Statue of the Wicked forces us to either destroy a monster on our side of the field or discard a card in our hand, or in the case of Wicked Forces, summon Wicked tokens on his side of the field respectively. Malevolent Catastrophe destroys all spell and traps whenever we initiate an attack. This can be used to generate value from the previous traps just mentioned, or just to clear our board for his beatstakes. He runs all of these at 3 copies as well, by the way. It's an interesting deck overall. His partner, Ray's deck, can easily be categorized as a control strategy. Every single monster that he plays all have the effect of bouncing a monster back to the hand under a variety of conditions, whether that's through a discard cost, a flip effect, or as a result of battle. No matter the case, they all end in the exact same situation. His spell count consists of 3 copies of Salvage, which will allow him to return the water flip monsters like Gale Lizard and Nightmare Penguin back to the hand from the grave. Soul Absorption at 1 copy facilitates the final spell card he plays at 3 copies called Degenerative Circuit. The former increases Ray's life total by 500 points for every card banished. He combines this with the 3 copies of Degenerative Circuit, as this card banishes all cards that would be otherwise returned to the hand at the cost of 500 life points. You see the problem now, right? Ray's game plan is to control the game, destroying our decks in the process. This clears out the field for his partner Rune to swing in and deal massive damage with his beatdown strategy. The team's strategy they've been cooking up is deviously effective. The bouncing back to hand would be annoying enough, without the Degenerative Circuit completely destroying our resources at no extra cost. It's paramount that we go first if we want any chance of sweeping them early. Bastion's opening hand consists of Batteryman Industrial Strength, Short Circuit, Batteryman D, Plasma Warrior Etom, and Batteryman Charger, drawing Mirror Force. He sets Batteryman D alongside Short Circuit and Mirror Force, ending the turn. Rune destroys our back row with a turn 1 Heavy Storm, summoning Enraged Battlelocks in attack position. He fails to swing over our set D and takes 200 points of damage from the battle, ending his turn with a face down. Our opening hand consists of Upstart Goblin, Alpha the Magnet Warrior, Card Destruction, The Tricky, and Brain Control, destroying Fisher. We draw Monster Reincarnation from the Upstart, taking over the Enraged Battlelocks with Brain Control, using it as a tribute to normal summon the Tricky for the first time in the run. Tricky swings directly for 2000 and we end the turn setting Fisher. Ray starts his turn with a combination of Soul Absorption and Degenerative Circuit. After resolving his game plan, he ends his turn by setting a monster. Bastion draws Batteryman Microcell and tributes Batteryman D, summoning Batteryman Charger in attack position. This allows him to special summon Double A from the deck. Charger runs into the set monster Gale Lizard, destroying it. Gale Lizard's flip effect then activates, bouncing Charger back to the hand, and Degenerate Circuit resolves, banishing it instead. Ray then gains 500 life points thanks to Soul Absorption. We can still attack directly for 3000 though, and we do so. Rune for some reason refuses to pay the cost for Degenerate Circuit. As a result, it's destroyed and the lockdown strat effectively self-destructs. He banishes the Enraged Battlelocks to special summon Gigantis in attack position. He then normal summons Hand of Nephis, and uses its effect to tribute itself to summon his boss monster Phoenix of Nephis. He then banishes his Gigantis from grave to special summon another copy, swinging over Batteryman AAA, reducing our life points to 6300. Sacred Phoenix inflicts a further 400 by destroying Tricky, and we're now put squarely on the back foot. We draw Tricky for turn, discarding Alpha to special summon it in attack position. Card Destruction replaces the Monster Reincarnation in our hand for a brick in Ancient Rules. Swinging over Gigantis, its effect activates, wiping the field of all spell and trap cards. This includes the trap Statue of the Wicked, summoning a Wicked token to their side of the field when said face down trap is destroyed. Sacred Phoenix then swings over Tricky and we lose a further 1400 points in this battle phase. Ray sets a monster, ending his turn. Bastion draws Monster Reborn, banishing 2 Thunder monsters from the grave to special summon Industrial Strength in attack position. Monster Reborn then revives the Tricky, and just like that, we're back in the driver's seat of the duel. Tricky swings over the token for 1000 points of damage, and Industrial Strength destroys Sacred Phoenix, meaning it can't revive itself as it was destroyed through battle. He ends his turn by setting Batteryman Microcell. Rune flips the face down monster, revealing another copy of Gale Lizard. Industrial Strength is then bounced back to the hand, and he equips Gale Lizard with Black Pendant, increasing its attack by 500 points. Gale Lizard swings over Microcell, triggering its effects, which summons a copy of AA to our side of the field, and allowing Bastion to draw a card. Ruin ends his turn with a set card. We draw Magician's Valkyria and swing over his Gale Lizard with Tricky. He then takes 100 points of damage from the battle, and we're burned for 500 due to the effects of Black Pendant. Our remaining monsters swing in for a combined 2600 points of damage, reducing their life points total to 1300 points. Ray, still salty over Rune's selfish plays, activates another copy of Degenerate Circuit. Salvage adds both Gale Lizards to hand and he sets one of them, ending the turn. Bastion draws Judgment of Thunder and tributes AA summoning Charger to the field. Charger special summons another copy of AA through its effect, and he resummons Industrial Strength by banishing a Thunder monster from the grave. And that's game, as Gale Lizard can only bounce one of our monsters back to the hand. Left alone on the dueling field, Axel makes his presence known, commending Bastion's victory and strength of character. Lamenting that not any duelist can win duels like this, where there are no spectators, no fans, a duel to protect those around you. The duels that you face alone with the heaviest stakes unmanageable. Axel leaves the safety of the island in our hands, and we finally have our answer. Yami Yugi can beat the story mode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Tag Force 3. Bastion's end portrait is such a cool homage to the ending credits of Season 4, with him sitting on the exact hill in the exact same pose as Jaden himself, cementing himself as the main character of this game. I literally never noticed this before until today, but if you look towards the right you can make out Banner's cat Pharaoh, Syrus, Blair, Jaden, CHAZZ and Alexis all watching over Bastion in an attempt. I guess the forgetful axe was just a bit of banter after all, they truly do respect him. Whilst the decks used today weren't viable by any means, there were a number of things I could have done differently to make them a tad more consistent. Being stubborn and not running the playset of the 4 tricky spell in the Egyptian God card deck was a mistake. I drastically overestimated the usefulness of Magician's Valkyria, given that we couldn't get the lockdown off once. I should have also played Skilled Dark Magician in both of these other decks as well, rather than the rogue copy of Beta that I placed in here for some reason. Magical Hats was just utter garbage, and running multiple copies of Spellbinding Circle would have worked a lot better in hindsight. For the Magnet Warrior deck, it probably would have been smart to run 3 copies of Valkyrion as well, just to increase the probability of drawing into it. All of these changes may have actually made the decks more competent in actually getting off their win conditions. If you made it this far into the video, I want to thank you for sticking around to the end. Your support means the world to me. I hope to get far more challenges in the vein of this one out in the near future, so please look forward to that. In the meantime, thank you for watching and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Until the next one guys.